Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. You on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's time for, well, it's going to be the last time it's going to be named this, God 2.0. I don't like the name. It's going away. Don't worry. I'm disappointed in the turnout, man. I'm like, ninth time, I'm told, ninth time in a row that I've been on time, perfectly on time, exactly on time. And it's disappointing. You get here and there's like nobody in the chat. Seems quiet. When I used to be late, I'd get there and the chat would just be full. People cursing me out. Guessing how long it was going to be till I would, it's been 15 minutes, it's been 20 minutes. I bet you it'll take them 30. Everyone's engaged. Now, nothing. Nothing. I'm like, why don't I just go back to being late? What the hell's the difference? I have to think about that. I wonder if I was actually getting more views by being late. Because now there's just nobody here. Like, oh, there's 8 of us. Cool, let's go. Anyway, let's bring on the show and we shall get going. See if anybody calls in. But how about this for a new name? Because, yeah, God 2.0 didn't work. Somebody gave me Cross-Examined, which I liked. But then I looked it up, and there's actually a Christian apologetics group that does Cross-Examined. Somebody's saying they're used to you being late, they'll show up. Okay, I get that. So, but they would, when I was late before, they were here on time. See? Because the chat was full. So if they're used to me being late, why aren't they here on time waiting for me? That's what I don't get. Anyway, I get it. We'll see if they get it. But that's 9 times in a row I've bitch slapped 2023. So that's pretty impressive. Let's talk about a name for the show real quick. What do you think of, this is just my pick because it kind of encompasses all of it. The words of man. Just that. I like it because it's true. I'm speaking, so it's words of me, and that's what we're discussing is the words of man. So I like that one. I don't know. What do you guys think? Or does anybody have any better ideas? 223 owns me? No. Sorry. 223 is getting destroyed. They're demonetizing channels. Watch out. Yes, that's what they do. But some of us try and stick to the rules, at least the best we can. Who or what created the earth? God did. The creator did. The creator creates. That's what the creator does, creates. Who or what created earth is a better discussion than what? The creator created the earth. I think you should know that. Oh, that's the name of the show? Who or what created the earth is what it should be called? That's a terrible name. Who or what created the earth? Welcome, everybody, to Who or What Created the Earth. I'm your host, Jaron. No, I'll probably pass on that one. I think we can go better. I think we can do better. Thank you very much. Camping in Sweden. Appreciate that. Which God, I mean. Okay, yes, but it's still not a good name. I mean, it's a good idea, but it's not a good name for the show. That's all I'm saying. Seeing if there's anybody else here that I recognize. Hello, Angela Baby Carson. Much love to you as well. We've got Doug in the house. The best 8 people in town. Yes. We've got 3 Eyes says, how did God create the earth? Like, how are we having an experience and why does anything exist at all? I think that the answer is only through God. Only through God does that actually work. And, such an amazing existence. I think sometimes we forget that. We don't realize the magic behind it all. Excuse me. Who the hell is Thalia Rain? Oh boy, I'm gonna go kick this person out of the chat. Thalia, drop your nonsense. Does it work on anybody? Has anybody ever fallen for that bullshit? Delete. Gone. There you go. There you go. Religism. So let me tell you why the ism doesn't work well. It's because something followed by ism means like you're about that, right? Catholicism means you're a Catholic, right? Racism means you're about being racist. Jeranism means you hella love Jaren. So ism doesn't work when you say religism, because that's like saying we hella love religion. So we don't hella love religion. So I don't like that. I don't like ism behind it, unless we're saying it's like one thing I thought about was discernmentism, which is not a word, but I would make it up because we are about discernment, right? So I like that, but it's still not a good name for the show. So I'm just hoping somebody would have something that would just go, that's it. They say quantum mechanics and Buddhism are talking about the same thing. Our consciousness is creating reality. Yeah, I think that is true. I have to look into a little bit more of the quantum mechanics because obviously I chalked it up mostly to just pseudoscience. But I do think that because I'm going to try some of this mentalism. I don't know if you guys saw Thursday's show. The guy that was here that does the making things move. I'm going to try that. I mean, if that ends up working, then you do have to believe in action at a distance. You do have to believe that we can mentally make things happen. So, what is this? Hold on, something's going on my screen here. A bunch of smoke for some reason. What is that? Fly in the clouds. Wow, that's pretty cool. What's on the screen behind me? Oh, purple. Smoke. I like those clouds, though. Fly in the clouds. That's pretty cool. And I got tired of having my logo behind me, so I put the window. Does that look real? Needs a little work. I don't know what to put outside there. Put like a pool with Christy Brinkley jumping in the pool off the diving board, like from Vacation, Christmas Vacation. Good movie. And if you want to support the show, you can. $sign Jeranism. These shows are a little bit expensive, believe it or not, because I'm going to use the phone lines, and this phone board I use is outrageously priced. They make it seem like it's like nothing. They're like, it's only 3 cents a minute, and you're like, I could do that. And then you do the math in your head, like, yeah, it comes out to like $10 a show. And they're just wiping $40 a show off your account. You're like, what? And then you go look at it, and you're like, I think they're adding it up right. I think it must be me who can't get it right. Let's see here. Go back to the chat. Just going to check a couple. Oh, yeah, that's fine. So if I shouldn't have this on the screen yet because you cannot join yet. So let me take that off so nobody gets too crazy happy. Yes, there's no way to join the show right now. We're looking at the name possibilities. Organism or orgasm. I like that one a lot. Probably too much, but I don't think it would fly. I'm not religious, but the religious folks do have a chance of being right. Atheists don't. They can't be proven wrong, whereas Christians can't. I would agree. I am not religious either, and I think that the ones closer are certainly the Christians, but be them closer to the actual truth is one thing. If they are responsible for the world the way it is, that's another, which I do think a lot of it has to do with these beliefs, the fighting between various beliefs, the fighting of thinking that God gave one group a book and not another group is insanity. Insanity to me. Let's see where we're at here. Unreligionism. Benny, I kind of like it, but it's not very catchy. The anti-Semitic hour. that makes you question. That makes you have to question their theory on how we exist at all. Their answer is there was nothing, but yet we have something, and a whole lot of intricate somethings at that. Impossible by chance. Agree. How about truth and reason? I'm not sure I like the word truth in there, but I do like reason. I do like logic, but I'm not sure truth is the right direction. I'm not sure we're meant to get to this truth in our life. Like the point of this life is to get as close as you can to that, but I don't think you can ever reach it. So I don't want to put that name in there. Which Godism? All right, now Rob's getting it. Christians are trying to be good people, so for that alone, we shouldn't mock them. Christians go around telling people that if they don't believe in their God, they will go to hell. So you can call that being a good person, but I don't go around telling anybody they're going to burn in hell. So I would say that the person doing that is probably a better person. But again, you might say, well, they're trying to save that person. What was I watching the other day that was saying something about how do I answer somebody who's got complaints about the Bible? And it was basically like, sit them down, tell them the truth, tell them that they will be burned for eternity. And I'm like, what? No, don't do that. That's not the way to go. That's not the way to go. Organism. Jolly man. I'm not sure about that one either. Some people have been to the other side and back again and I have been both places. Well, again, here's the thing is that's somebody's personal experience. And I don't think anybody else should base their worldview on somebody else's personal experience. For instance, there's schizophrenics out there who think that they're two different people. So should we listen to that person and go make our life about being two people? I don't think that's very smart. Let's see what else we got here. Hi everyone of the you truthers. We got to fight. Logicism. Don't like that either. Needing faith is a weakness. Yes, faith cannot be a good thing. It doesn't work anywhere else in life. So you can go try and cross the freeway and you can have as much faith as you want. And I hate to tell you, you're not going to make it. You will not make it. Hello. What's up, Frederick Beagle? Developed immorality program. WF, what the fuck is them? WTF is them. Now, if we could think of what WTF stands for, now you're getting somewhere. What could we make WTF-ism stand for? I'll think about that one. Faith is like some sort of trap. Well, I think the trap is, here's my vision of the trap. The trap is that they know that every human being has a connection to the Creator, number one. Okay? So that's a known thing. And we all had that connection from birth and growing up, and it's slowly removed from you through indoctrination, through vaccination, possibly through other methods. And you kind of lose a little bit of that touch, but you still have a little bit left. You have two different people. You have atheists, you have believers. Atheists are ones who became so jaded, so upset by their severance from God that they immediately discount all of God and say, no, he doesn't exist. They also think Christians are so dumb for believing in a book and believing fairy tales or whatever that they then don't like the version of God that Christians gave them, and so they become disillusioned with it and they give up on God completely, which is ridiculous. If you think these people are so dumb, if these people are so out of their minds, why would you take their version of God, say that doesn't exist, and then wipe God completely from the slate? That doesn't seem to be very smart. You should see them and say, well, those guys don't understand God, and then go look for God yourself. They didn't do that. What did they do? They went to the first person with open arms saying, come, we're all about truth here. We don't ever believe anything. We don't have any beliefs. Have you heard these scientists? Neil deGrasse Tyson? I don't have beliefs. Right. Sure you don't, Neil. And those stars are just 25 trillion miles away, and we just know that. And did you measure it with a ruler? Oh, just some arbitrary method that you came up with? That's not belief? Dipshit. Come on, give me a break. Heaven and hell are, if they exist, are here on our flat earth and based on how you live your life and morals. I agree with that. You can make this heaven or make it hell. I was glad to hear you say God created the earth. I know your point of view now. You're saying you don't think man has seen or knows who God is, it seems. Correct. I'm certainly not an atheist. I don't believe that the God of the Old Testament is worthy of worship at all. It's not even close. It's not like, well, I got to think about it. No, there's no redeeming factors unless you say, well, what about Jesus? Did you like Jesus? Yeah, Jesus was cool. But if God never changes and God is not a man, God says, I'm not a man, nor am I son of man. Then Jesus comes saying, I'm son of man. And then people are like, they're the same person. No, that would be incorrect. That would be a complete and total contradiction. And yet they believe that. So I do believe there is a God, and I believe it's been hidden from us on purpose. And I believe that what they've done is they've constructed a way of keeping humanity in shackles and also performing duties and deeds for those who are evil and wicked. So I believe that by telling people that meek will inherit the earth, that only the poor can get into heaven, that to give your money to the poor, to go visit people in prison, all the things that they tell you to do that came from the book supposedly are things that benefit the government. They're things that benefit the elite, that benefit the evil ones. So the Bible says, let evil be evil, let wicked be wicked, which is a little strange. I would think that you should end wickedness and end evil, not just sit back and be like, yep, there they go raping kids again. Yep, there they go. What are you going to do? Yeah, they're trafficking them, but, let evil be evil, let wicked be wicked. Doesn't seem like the God that I would believe in. Where are we at here? You crossing the road analogy is confusing faith with foolishness, so no need for that. You're projecting a case that a Christian wouldn't. Cross-examined. What? Your crossing the road analogy is confusing faith. No, I'm not. You have put your faith. It's even worse than that. When I'm talking about crossing the street, okay, you're crossing the street, but let's say we don't know what our eternity is. You're actually basing your entire eternity on a belief in a man who lived 2,000 years ago that you've never met. God never told you he wrote a book. God never said, I'm writing this. This is your book. It's for you to read and to follow. He never said that. So you're basing your entire worldview on the words of men. So it's not foolishness. I mean, it's equal in foolishness as crossing the street without looking both ways. You're just saying, I have faith. I have faith that God said that he wrote a book. I have faith that Jesus was here. I always hear this one, lately I've heard this one where people are like, Jaron, people were martyrs for this. People died for Jesus. I'm like, okay, well, today people would die for Jesus, right? So if it would happen today, it doesn't surprise me it would happen back then. But also, men say people died for Jesus. This is what we're missing. We're missing the fact that none of us were here. None of us can prove any of that at all. So would God expect you to believe the words of men written in a book? Now you might say, well, yes, it's his Bible and it's everything's true and perfect. Okay, great. But what about the other books that you guys are claiming? Because you're saying men died for Jesus. Well, it doesn't say that in the Bible. Well, maybe it does. I don't even know if it says that. But I think that there's stories of people who died for Jesus who were martyrs after the fact. So I don't know. You'd have to tell me. Do we know that for a fact? Again, I would hope that what I kind of thought would happen is as we look into this subject, people would recognize that it's kind of the same as the flat earth versus globe earth kind of discussion, in that there's things that we can't go and see and we can't go and verify. And therefore, we're asking them to be proven to us, which we know that they cannot, okay, or that they haven't yet. So the same thing is true of the Bible. And I don't understand why there's the disconnect between, on one, it's like, no, we have full faith that God wrote a book, that Jesus was here, that he raised the dead, that he rose to heaven. We have full faith in that. But we don't believe in planets because we've never been there and they can't give us any real pictures of it. So it's a little bit of a hypocrisy that I don't want to have. I don't want to be a hypocrite. And so if I'm going to demand evidence of people before I believe something, well, this is certainly something that I'm going to demand evidence of. And there's no evidence that God wrote a book. And I've been given morals from the Creator. And I believe I'm supposed to use those to navigate the earth and to navigate life. And so if I'm given a book, Jaron, hey, here's this book. Where's my Bible, by the way? Do I have it over there? Let me get my book real quick. All right. So if somebody, hands me the book and says, here, this book was written by God. So again, I even believe that is a problem, because now you're, as a child or whatever you are, you're going to take that book and you're going to assume it's written by God. So anything that you read that you assume is written by God, you're going to take with more reverence. You're going to allow mistakes. You're going to allow nonsense, because you're like, well, God wrote it. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Question God? So it's a trick from the start. But then as you start to read the book, if your morals don't match the morals of the Creator, you have one group of people out there that would tell you it doesn't matter. It's God. You have to do whatever he says, which is insane, because you can take that to the logical next step, which would be, at what point do you interject and say, well, now I don't believe this God is worship worthy because look what he's doing. If you believe like some people do, you have to believe God. You have to love God and worship him no matter what. Well, how could that be true? What are you saying? That if God comes down and starts doing crazy things, that we're supposed to go, well, that's God, that's our Creator, and we have to worship him no matter what? Don't you understand that there would be a line? And as a God, wouldn't you be shocked if people kept worshiping you no matter how bad you got? No matter what wrong you did? You're like, these people are still worshiping me. This is crazy. So there must be a line, and that's why the idea of you have to worship him no matter what is insane. No. You would worship who is worthy of worship. You would discount who is not. And so in the Old Testament right away, you can start finding problems. You know, one of those things that I've always had a problem with is Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel, you've got Abel who brought the first of the flock, right? So he actually killed animals, carved them up, got them ready for God, whatever God needs dead animals for. And then you had Cain who went and brought the first of all the fruits and vegetables. And it says God looked favorably upon Abel and did not look favorably upon Cain, which again, and then people are like, oh, well, they're trying to add a bunch of things. That's what the text says. So what are we supposed to see that as? What it looks like to us is that God enjoys the killing of animals more than he does the harvesting of fruits and vegetables, which again is weird. Let me see here. I'm just going to look at something here. So here's one thing that I have a problem with. We're going to go to Leviticus chapter 21, 16. And I'll read for you from Leviticus here. It says, the Lord said to Moses, speak to Aaron and tell him, none of your descendants of whatever generation who has a defect shall come forward to offer up food for his God. Therefore, he who has any of the following defects may not come forward. He who is blind or lame, or who has any disfigurement or malformation, or is crippled foot or crippled hand, or who is humpbacked or weakly or wall-eyed, or who is afflicted with eczema, ringworm, or a hernia. No descendant of Aaron the priest who has any such defect may draw near to offer up the oblations to the Lord. On account of his defect, he may not draw near to offer up the food of his God. He may, however, partake of the food of his God, of what is most sacred, as well as of what is most sacred, as well as of what is sacred. Okay. Only he may not approach the veil, nor go up on the altar on account of his defect. He shall not profane these things that are sacred to me, for it is I, the Lord, who make them sacred. Moses therefore told to Aaron and his sons and all the Israelites. So God is the creator. Okay, so he created these people with blindness. And how do you think that, again, Mrs. Brother, my brother-in-law, is born without a hand. Okay, how is he supposed to read this? So he is not able to go to the altar of the Lord? He's not able to offer up food to the great God of this world because he was born without a hand? Because the umbilical cord got wrapped around it and it didn't grow? It's a little bit insane. Let's see what else we got here. I'm just looking at the chat. By the way, if you have something for me, please put at Jeranism. You see how you guys see people who do that, and then I can actually read it. I don't believe in a Jebus. That's a good name. Interdimensional. If we are taking the Bible literally, where do you draw the line? No one needs telling right from wrong. Right. You know it. Right. You know you're doing something. Right. That's in you. I believe that's what we should recognize as God, is that morality that lives inside you. So again, I've told my opinion of who I think God is. This dude, a serious lack of understanding. Listen, I'm going to make this announcement right now. If you are a Christian and you think that it's okay to just be in the chat and say things like, you don't understand, you're taking it out of context. We don't need other men to tell us about God. So it's not a lack of understanding. What I just read is what the words say. That if you have any defect, if you're ugly, if you're wall-eyed, if you have weakly, if you have ringworm or a hernia, If you fucking pulled your groin, you're not allowed to go up to the Lord's altar. Give me a break. Okay, these are the words of men, and we need to be cognizant enough or coherent enough to recognize the difference and why we give God the traits of men. Oh, he's jealous. He's vindictive. He doesn't want you worshiping other gods. Those are things that men have problems with. Men are jealous and vindictive and don't want you going other places and talking to other. That's what men do, not God. So tell me where we're messing up there. Where's my lack of understanding? There is no lack of understanding when it comes to reading the Bible, unless you want to trust in your pastors who basically lie to you. Why? Because they make a great deal of money. That's why. They make a huge. That's another thing. I'm so sick of the people saying that Christianity is like held back. What is the word I'm looking for? They're always like, it's demonized. I'm like, no, it's not. Go look at Creflo Dollar's income. Go look at that guy, COVID-19. What's his name? What is his name? You know what I'm talking about? Gosh, I can't think of his name. The priest, the pastor, whatever. Go look at Joel Osteen's bank account. These men are just taking money hand over foot, and people just let them. What are you going to do? But don't tell me that it's held back. These people don't pay taxes so they can pad their pockets and have $14 million homes, which is what Joel Osteen's home cost. Sorry, I was looking at a couple things here. I was trying to find where the other. So I'm going to talk to you about two different verses in the Bible, and you tell me how this happens, if the book is inspired by God. But here's the thing. Do we recognize that there was an Old Testament? Jesus came, speaking of the Old Testament, saying, so it's written, things like that. Okay, great. Jesus dies, and there was no talk of a New Testament. Jesus didn't say, write a New Testament of me. Show me where that's in the book. It wasn't even brought up until hundreds of years later, maybe 100 or 200 years later, when they then decided to create the canon of the New Testament. Now, the New Testament is like Paul's letters. Why would Paul's letters be scripture? It's just some guy going around telling people, hey, can you make sure there's some food out for us? Last time we came, you didn't leave any food. We weren't able to eat. We'd appreciate it, since we're doing the work of Christ, that if you would leave us some food next time, please. Thank you. That doesn't seem like scripture to me. Why would they name that as scripture? But they did. And then we have a New Testament. But let me show you something here, because if I can find Chronicles, this is my go-to Bible. I don't even know what version it is or what you would call it. It's just older. And it's got a bunch of highlights and little, what are they called? Bookmarks. Is Chronicles? Oh, wait, maybe it's here. This is Chronicles Paralipomenion. What the hell is? Why does my Bible say a different word there? Let me check this. I've never even seen that word or never looked it up. Paralip Paralipomenon. Paralipomenon. In the Vulgate Bible or some other versions, the name of the Book of Chronicles, regarded as a supplementary to the Book of Kings. All right, well, this is Chronicles. All right, so I'm going to read you two different stories, and you're going to notice that these are the same exact story, but slightly different. See if you can figure out the difference. So chapter 24 of Samuel chapter 24. We're just going to start reading. We're going to read the first couple verses here. So it's called Consensus of the People. And the anger of the Lord was again kindled against Israel, and stirred up David among them, saying, go, number Israel and Judah. And the king said to Joab, the general of the army, go through all the tribes of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, and number ye people, that I may know the number of them. All right. So that's chapter 24, how it begins. We got it. The anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. So he stirred up David, told him to go and number Israel and Judah, basically to take a consensus. And the king said to Joab, the general of the army, go through the tribes and let's get the count of the people. All right. Now we're going to go to a completely different chapter, Chronicles 22, starting again. That maybe is wrong. Hold on. Maybe it's Chronicles 21. Sorry, Chronicles 21. Not 22. My bad. Chronicles 21, we're going to start that one. And it begins, "And Satan rose up against Israel and moved David to number Israel. And David said to Joab, the rulers of the people, Go and number Israel from Beersheba down to Dan, and bring me the number of them that I may know it." Okay, so we got the same exact story beginning, only in chapter 22 of Chronicles it says, "And Satan rose up against Israel, and he moved David to number Israel." But we just read over here that the same story starts out, "And God and the anger of the Lord was again kindled against Israel and stirred up David among them." So it's a little bit of a contradiction, if you will, but it's the same exact story. From there, if we go on, now we're reading back to Samuel. "And Joab said to the king, The Lord thy God increase thy people, and make them as many as they are now, and again multiply them 100-fold in the sight of my lord and king. But what meaneth my lord and king by this kind of thing?" But the king's words prevailed over the words of Joab, and the captains of the army and Joab and the captains of the soldiers went out to the presence of the king to number the people of Israel. And when they had passed the Jordan, they came to Aroer, to the right side of their city, which is in the vale of Gad. And by Jazer they passed into Galaad, and to the lower land of Hadosi. And they came into the woodlands of Dan, and going about by Sidon. They passed near the walls of Tyre, and all the land of the Hivite and the Canaanite, and they came to the south of Judah, into Beersheba. And having gone through the whole land, after 9 months and 20 days, they came into Jerusalem. And Joab gave the sum of the number of the people to the king, and there were found of Israel 800,000 valiant men that drew the sword, and of Judah 500,000 fighting men. Okay, now let's go and read Chronicles 21. "And Joab answered, The Lord make his people 100 times more than they are. But my lord and king, are they not the servants? Why does my lord seek this thing, of which may be imputed a sin to Israel? But the king's word rather prevailed, and Joab departed and went through all of Israel and returned to Jerusalem. And he gave David the number of them whom he had surveyed, and all the number of Israel was found to be 1,100,000 men who drew the sword, and of Judah 470,000 fighting men. But Levi and Benjamin he did not number, for Joab unwittingly executed the king's orders. And God was displeased with this thing that was commanded, and he struck Israel. And David said to God, I have sinned exceedingly in doing this. I beseech thee, take away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done foolishly. And the Lord spoke to Gad, the seer of David, saying, Go and speak to David, and tell him, Thus say the Lord, I give thee a choice of 3 things. Give one which thou wilt, and I will do it to thee. And Gad came to David and said to him, Thus say the Lord, choose thou which thou wilt, either 3 years of famine, or 3 months to flee from thy enemies, and not to be able to escape their sword, or 3 days to have the sword of the Lord and the pestilence of the land, and the angel of the Lord destroying in all the coasts of Israel. Now therefore see what I shall answer him who sent me. And David said to Gad, I am on the side of the great strait, but it is better for me to fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are many, than into the hands of men. So the Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel, and there fell of Israel 70,000 men. So in Chronicles, God is upset that David did what Satan told him to, and then he had to pay the price of all these things. 3 years famine, 3 months. He got to choose one. So let's go back to Samuel and see if that part matches. Okay. We're starting at verse 10. But David's heart struck him after the people were numbered, and David said to the Lord, I have sinned very much in what I have done, but I pray thee, O Lord, to take away the iniquity of thy servant, because I have done exceedingly foolishly. And David arose in the morning, and the word of the Lord came to Gad, and the prophet the seer of David, saying, Go and say to David, Thus say the Lord, I give thee thy choice of 3 things. Choose which one of them thou wilt, that I may do it to thee. And when Gad was come to David, he told him, saying, Either 7 years of famine shall come into thy hand, and come into thy land, or thou shalt flee 3 months before the adversaries, and they shall pursue thee, or for 3 days thou shalt be pestilence in thy land. Now therefore, deliberate, and see what answer I shall return to him that sent me. And David said to God, I am in great strait, but it is better that I should fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are many, than into the hands of men. And the Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel from the morning until the time appointed, and there died of the people from Dan to Beersheba 70,000 men. And when the angel of the Lord had stretched out his hand over Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord had pity on the affliction and said to the angel that slew the people, "It is enough. Now hold thy hand." And the angel of the Lord was by the thrashing floor of the arena of the Jebusite. Okay, so again, even if you believe this side of the story, now God is upset at David for numbering the people when God told him to number the people. So God said, "Here, number the people." He went out, came back, said, "Okay, I numbered the people." And then God was pissed. And David said, "Oh, sorry, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I numbered those people." And then he asked to bring pestilence on the land, and 70,000 people died. Can you imagine, though? If you did something wrong, you're like, "God, I did something wrong. I feel bad. I did this thing." And then God's like, "All right, here's your choices. Something could happen to you. Something could happen to you short term, or something can happen to your nation of people." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, go ahead and do it to the nation of people." All right, and God killed 70,000 men. Thanks, God. Thanks for that. Because I'm sure they were all evil. Because here's the thing: you'll have a Christian say, "Oh, they're all evil. They're all giants. They'll make up whatever they can because what the book says is nonsense, and they're trying to sell it to you." Again, why not just come to the conclusion that God has never killed anybody ever? And I'll believe he did when he comes down, or when I see him face to face, and I say, "God, did you kill some people?" And he's like, "I did, Jaron. I killed a few people." All right, okay. I didn't believe the book that would say that you'd kill people because I knew that was written by men, right? Or was it written by you? He would say, "No, men wrote the Bible." Okay, good. Just making sure. Because there's people in this world that believe that you've committed atrocities, that you don't allow people who are blind to come to your altar. God would laugh at me. Why wouldn't I let people that are blind? That's not their fault. I'd say, "Yeah, exactly. Thank you. There's a book down there that people believe is you, even though there's nothing in there at all that remotely resembles a God. It resembles a man. It's a man's version of God, a primitive version of God, who thinks that God is responsible for thunder and thinks that God is responsible for nations dying and things like that, when it's just man doing those things and killing each other." So again, to me, I would need a lot more evidence to start accusing God of things than a book, because I don't think that that's enough, unless there's some sort of corroborating evidence, or there's not anything. Okay, one more thing I want to read from you from the Gospels, just as I'm thinking of funny things, and I'll check the chat. Is there more orange letters? Oh, sorry. Where does the Bible say to promote a flat earth? I don't think it does. Good call. I'm not a believer in the Bible. So thank you for that. Where does the Bible say you should wake up every morning? That's what I thought. It doesn't say it, does it? Nope. So what does that mean? That we shouldn't be following books? I would say so. Okay, 1 second. I'm trying to find this I'm looking for. I know I have it highlighted in here, but I don't remember which. Is it Matthew or Mark? So what I'm looking for, just to tell you ahead of time, is just, again, I would believe in a book if it was perfect, right? It'd be hard not to. But if it's not perfect and it's terrible, then you have to start questioning, well, God didn't approve of the book. And there's 2 chapters that are within a page of each other. I believe they're on the same page, where Jesus feeds 5,000 men. Here we go. I find. See if this is the one. Where's the... Hold on. Yeah, okay. So I'm reading from Mark. Now, like, how did I never notice this as a kid? And this is why they hide things from you. Like, pastors will never tell you this. Your priests in church will never tell you this. They just read you stories and they never mention the problems with it. Why? Because, well, they make their money that way. So, of course, no pastor is going to tell you something that makes you doubt your faith. Then they don't make your money. They don't get your tithings. Let's be smart. I'm reading from chapter 7, Mark chapter 7, verse 34. And then I'm going to go over to Mark chapter 8. So we're talking about one chapter later. Okay. Chapter 7 is talking about Jesus feeding the 5,000. And we get to the bottom here. And says, but he answered and said to them, you yourselves give them some food. And they said to him, are we to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them to eat? And he said to them, how many loaves have you got? Go and see. And when they had found out, they said 5 and 2 fishes. And he ordered them to make all the people recline in groups on the green grass. And they reclined in groups of hundreds and fifties. And he took the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and he looked up to heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And the 2 fishes he had divided among them all, and all they ate were satisfied. And all of them ate and were satisfied. And they gathered up what was left, 12 baskets full of fragments, besides what was left over of the fishes. Now those who had eaten were 5,000 men. Okay, good story. Let's go over to chapter 8. We're just in the next chapter. It should be chronological. Chapter 8. In those days, again, when there was a great crowd and they had nothing to eat, he called his disciples together and he said to them, I have compassion for the crowd, for behold, they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away to their homes fasting, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come from a distance. And his disciples answered him. Okay, now listen, what kind of disciples does Jesus have that say to him, how will anyone be able to satisfy these with bread here in the desert? Jesus, how are we going to feed these people? It seems impossible. Were you here last chapter? And the disciples answered him, and he asked them, how many loaves of fish do you have? And they said 7. So it's even a different amount of loaves, so it's a different story, technically. One story is he fed 5,000, the next story is he fed 4,000. Doesn't matter if we flip them. If we got them wrong, where's the story of the disciples already knowing where the food is going to come from? This is a fairy tale. It's not real life. It's nonsense. You don't think God, who authored the Bible or inspired it, didn't tell one of the writers, let's not write that as the next chapter because we just told that story. And if we tell it again, but you act like the disciples didn't know, it's going to be a little bit weird because of course the disciples would know. Even if you're like, oh, but Jaron, half the disciples were left at home. I don't give a shit. They would have gone home. You don't think that story got around? You don't think people heard that Jesus multiplied fish and bread? Of course they did. So all the disciples knew. Don't tell me that, oh, well, 3 of them were on vacation and they weren't allowed to talk. And then they came back and then they're like, go with Jesus. We can't tell you what just happened. It's garbage. And he bade the crowd recline on the ground. Taking 7 loaves, he gave them thanks, broke the bread, gave them to his disciples to distribute. And they set them before the Lord. And they had a few little fishes and he blessed them and ordered them to be distributed. And they ate and were satisfied. And they took up what was left of the fragments, 7 baskets. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he dismissed them. So, again, these are just stories, parables, little sayings, but they're not actual real stories. If they were, then in either one of these, the disciples would not say, how are we going to feed these people? How are we going to do it? Here it says, and when he landed, Jesus saw a large crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. Now when the day was far spent, his disciples came, saying, this is a desert place, and the hour is already late. Send them away, so that they may go to the hamlets and villages round about and buy themselves food to eat. But he answered to them and said, you yourselves give them some food. And they said to him, are we to go buy a bunch of bread? How are we going to do it? So, if you want to just keep believing in nonsense, you can. That's all right. I don't mind. Thank you for joining the club. Appreciate it. There's no, are you talking, I don't know if people are talking about me. There is no pleasing some people. I would be pleased. This is not bad. God could make you not hungry. If he wanted, he could. Yes. There should be 3 stories, but they missed out the sequel. Just take what's good and throw out the rest. You can do that. You can do that. But that's not what people do. They go around telling other people they're going to burn in hell. That's not taking the good and leaving the bad. That's just taking the bad, Have you ever spoke with Adam Green? I used to like Adam Green, but he's a huge believer in light years and stars are what they tell us. So no, not a fan of anybody who has that kind of worship for the Bible. I mean, worship for the Bible of physics, right? Because you have to I would hope he would see the same thing. He doesn't see that. He sees it as completely different. And I get why. This is what they do to people, is that since he sees the lies in religion, he gravitates towards science, right? He doesn't realize that science is just another religion that has fooled people by teaching them that their beliefs are real. That's the difference. That's the difference. A lot of people are seeing through this now. Yeah, it's starting to get to that point. I'm noticing that too. I think it's a good time for it to come out because I think that as humans, we need to be okay with realizing what would be the truth. Can you imagine? And I'll just give you an example. What would you think of me if I told you guys today, by the way, I've learned how to create little beings. They're over here on my floor. Got thousands of them. They're little tiny individual little people. And they live their own little lives and they've got their own free will. And you'd be like, what? But yeah, they're crazy. They're just down here. And then you're like, well, why'd you create them? And I say, well, to worship me. And you're like, what do you mean? I want all those little guys to worship me. That's their whole goal in life. You're like, what? Why would you create things like that? Because I'm giving them a chance to join me for eternity. Now, some of them, if they don't worship me, I'm going to burn them in hell forever. Some of them are going to realize that I'm their God and that they should worship me. And then when they do, they can join me in bliss forever. But they won't actually get to bring any of their free will when they go forever with me, because they're going to have to be spiritually washed into what I want them to be. So it's not actually them. It is kind of them, but they're kind of robots. You would start to think I was a psychopath. At which point would you be like, this guy has a problem? If I said to you, well, there's another little being, he's not little, he's kind of my height. Satan is his name. He's been corrupting some of them. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm just going to flood them all. Tell some of them to get on a boat so they can save their lineage. But the rest of them I'm just going to flood. And you'd be like, why would you kill them that way? Aren't they going to drown? Don't they have like pain and suffering? Yep. And then you'd be like, well, what are you going to do to that Satan character? What are you going to do to him? And I'd be like, oh, no, he's staying. But wait, what? You're going to kill all the little beings you created. Try and start it again. But the reason you're killing them is because Satan has fooled them. He's made them terrible people. And then you're going to leave Satan there for the next batch? Yeah. And then if I said to you eventually, well, all these beings are all corrupted. They're garbage to me now. They're born in sin. They're disgusting. They're not at all what I expected. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make myself into my own self-son. And then I'm going to have to be born of a virgin. One of those little girls down there is going to be a virgin. She's going to give birth to me as a human in the playground. And then I'm going to teach people how to live by being ultra human. I'm going to be able to walk on water. I'm going to be able to turn water into wine, raise the dead. I'll be able to do all that, but I'll teach them how to live like a human. And then I'm just going to basically preach for like 3 years. They're going to hang me on the cross. I'm not going to do anything about it. And then that will be a sacrifice so that I can then wipe the sins of all the other little beings. If anything like that ever went on, would you not recognize I'm a lunatic? Wouldn't you recognize that? So why are we giving people a lunatic God and being told to follow that? I mean, I think it's almost, and I don't know if you've ever heard Eddie Bravo's opinion of this. Eddie Bravo says that the Bible is purposely ridiculous because look at it this way. Like I said, we all have a connection with the Creator, right? So what they wanted to do is create an avenue for people who believed, okay? But then the people who were skeptical, an avenue that would definitely turn them the other way in defining science. So that you end up with two belief systems, people who believe, people who don't, but both are exactly what you want of people. They are either science lovers and backers who go to, will just repeat what they're told. They don't even have their own beliefs. And the same thing is kind of true for Christians, right? They're not really coming up with their own beliefs. They believe what the book tells them to believe. So to me, that seems incorrect, right? Same thing is true. Let's just go one more story with the little being, because I think it's a good example. And you would recognize me. You would say, like, you would go tell your friends, like, dude, do you know that guy Jaron? He's a lunatic. He created little beings for the sole purpose of worshiping him. So what I've been told, or what we're supposed to believe about God, is that he gave us this book. So imagine I told you guys, and you're like, well, how do they know to believe in you? I'd be like, oh, I put a little book down there. I'd be like, what? Well, I inspired some of the little beings to write a book, and now I told them to pass it out to everybody. And they'd be like, yeah, but how do they know that you did that? Or, well, I told them to write it in the book, that I'm the one who told them to write the book. People would think I was insane. Like, that's not going to work. And like, think of what Muslims believe. Muslims believe that then that little book got tainted and God found out. He's like, what? They tainted my word? All right, let's go to that other people over there and let's give them a new book. And then people would be like, well, don't you realize that you're going to have fighting between those two groups of people? They're both going to think that they have the right God. Yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out which one. Yeah, but aren't you both gods? Didn't you give the Bible and then it got corrupted and then you went and gave the Quran? And now you're saying that won't be corrupted? Yes. Okay, but they're going to fight between each other. If the books aren't the same, they're going to fight and think one's going to have the right God and the other one does. Yeah, they'll figure it out. I mean, this is what we are told to believe. Again, if you're a Muslim. If you're a Muslim, you probably think that Muhammad made it up, I'm guessing. So, why weren't people amazed that Jesus came back from the dead? Surely that should have removed any doubt of his divinity. I would think so too. Like, why would anybody go against that, right? Like the Romans and things like that. Why, if they knew that, wouldn't they all say, oh, there was a man here who rose from the dead? I don't know why they wouldn't think that. Satan. Oh, that's nice. Maybe God grew up also and became more compassionate. But God says he never changed. He doesn't change. God says he's not a man. He's not a son of man. He doesn't walk upon the earth. I mean, but then he came as his own son, as a man, as the son of man walking on the earth. That doesn't seem right. You can tell how the Bible has become this nonsense thing when you just look at the idea of, is Jesus God or not? Because you've got a whole group of people saying you have to worship Jesus as God. So then if then he is God. But clearly Jesus didn't see himself as God. Not at all. No man has seen God. No man has heard his voice. Well, he's talking, saying those things. So if he's God, again, he says later, no man knows the day or the hour, but the Father. Even the Son doesn't know. Well, then they're not the same being. A person who will go unnamed got upset because I have a problem with the Trinity. I said the Trinity is in the Old Testament, and their proof of the Trinity being in the Old Testament is Elohim saying, let us create man in our image. So if that's your kind of evidence for believing in the Trinity, which is the three gods in one, God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus are all one, which is just ridiculous. What do you mean they're one? And you can tell what's missing from this whole story is the divine feminine, the mother. We know it takes two. You can just tell men wrote the book. That's why men treat women the way they do in the book. Do you really think God has such a problem with women on their period? That he calls them unclean? That a woman who gives birth to a male is unclean for 33 days, but yes, a male is 33 days and a woman is 66 days. Okay, God. That doesn't seem right. M is the 13th letter. JC is 13. What is the JC 13? What do you mean? JC is 13. Oh, wait, what? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Oh, J is 10. And then C is 3. I got you. Why 13th isn't a floor, right? Usually it's not. Other than Adam and Eve having belly buttons in paintings, what about Adam's first partner, Lilith, right? You don't hear a lot about Lilith. And again, so these things have been hidden from us, so it's okay to discuss them. Hopefully you guys realize that. And if you're a Christian and this bothers you, then just turn it off. Go watch Benny Hinn. It's okay. But anyway, I want to get to my story here. So if I gave him a book, nobody would think that that's okay. Yet, because we are the little beings, we're like, oh, it's God. God gave us a book, and that's fine. And he gave us an instruction guide. And but again, just take yourself away from the situation we're in. Kind of look from a bird's eye view. Think of the first two beings. So remember, I'm going to create these little beings. I'm going to start with two. The Christian story is God had a vision of perfection. That he thought this was going to be a perfect world with no death and no sin, which makes no sense. People would just pile on top of each other. It would be crazy. But let's say that that's true. So he wants a whole world full of no death, no sin, no strife, just loveliness and apples and pear trees and everything. So number one, God obviously isn't very smart if he put the first two humans down here and didn't mention Satan exists. He just forgot that. I have all these visions of greatness and love and glory. I'm going to put these two beings down there and they're going to live forever in happiness. Oops, I forgot to tell him the one thing that could cause a problem in this story. And the one thing is the devil fooling them, okay? So again, I've told the story before. If I've got my son and he's 4 years old and he's in the kitchen and I'm telling him not to touch the stove. I'm cooking some food. Don't touch, this is hot, right? And I've got another son who's a piece of garbage. He just stays in his room all day doing drugs and trying to meet women on VR porn sites. I don't know. And I tell my younger son, hey, I got to go to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. Don't touch the stove. I go to the restroom. While I'm in the restroom, here comes my older son. He sees my 4-year-old and says, what are you doing? It's like, oh, I'm watching the food. Dad says, don't touch the stove. It's like, why not? He says, it'll burn me. No, it won't. It doesn't burn you. When you touch the stove, you become an adult. The 4-year-old will be like, what? Yeah, it doesn't burn you. He's lying. It will actually make you become an immediate adult. So the 4-year-old looks at the stove and says, I want to be an adult. Boom, touches the stove, burns his hand. He's screaming, yelling. I run out there. What happened? What happened? The other kid's laughing. Whose fault is this? What just happened? It is certainly my older son's fault. He's a piece of garbage for saying that and hurting his brother, right? Who's second most at fault? Probably me. Why? Because I just left my 4-year-old in the same vicinity of a child I know is a bad influence. The person that's not at all responsible is the 4-year-old child. We're told the story of Adam and Eve, and the responsible entity ends up being the 4-year-old child. The people who didn't know right from wrong, who didn't know that sin existed, who didn't know that the devil existed, who didn't know that they could be deceived. And then we're told that all of humanity is fallen because of it. Again, from a bird's eye view, look at my little created creatures and imagine that I then tell you that they're all fallen, they're all born in sin. You're like, why? Well, the first two, they ate an apple that this guy told them, and then you'd be like, oh, well, why don't you just start over? No, I'm God. I'm not allowed to start over. I put 2 there, and the deal is whatever happens to them happens forever. Is that not ridiculous? Is that not ridiculous? It is basically an insane thought process that anybody would believe that. Okay. Not to mention of women, I don't see many of them with my name. Remember, if you're talking to me, make sure you put at Jeranism or else I can't see it. I can't go through every word in there. I do see one. I'm getting there. Jaron, based off his actions, God must be incompetent or malicious. Yeah, I would think so. That's how I look at it. So what I'm able to do is then to recognize that I don't need to worship that God. And I ultimately think that YHWH is the God of the Jews. The God of the Jews, they used to go around killing nations, to do a bunch of dirty things, to come up with circumcision, all these things. And when Jesus came, maybe he kind of started to screw the system up. So they said, let's have people worship him as God. This way, when they go around carrying, they still talk about YHWH. That's him, really, in another form. So then the Catholics went and spread the word of the Jews all over the world. So now the entire world has been flooded or inundated with this idea of YHWH, who is the Jews' God, right? So I don't have any desire to worship the Jews' God. Anybody who has a chosen people that he then has go out and kill other groups so that his chosen people can have the land of milk and honey, that's not a God. That's a racist. Why would God have a chosen people? Oh, I only like this group, not that group, not that group, not that group. And people always say, oh, but they were giants, they were this, they were that. Okay, well, I would think there's still, again, think about it. Put yourself in the bird's eye view again of your little created world where, for whatever reason, some angels that you also created go down and have sex with the actual little beings, the females. And they have an offspring that is giants. And those giants start terrorizing the earth down there. So if you are God, you could snap your fingers. I could do this and the giants would be gone. But instead, we're told the story that God then gathered up the Israelites and said, now we're going to go and we're going to kill that nation. And then we're going to kill that nation. And you have to put yourself in a God position. Think of what God would need to do. Why do you people believe that God is just some loser human that has loser human tendencies? Let's just go kill the other nation. How about God killed the firstborn of all the Egyptians because they were worshiping a different God? So now imagine I tell you, you're like, what are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm doing the Passover tonight. You're like, what's that? Well, let me tell you what's going on over here. Some of these little beings have started to worship other gods. And you'd be like, wait, aren't you the only creator of them? Yeah, that's the weird thing. Only I created them. They're believing now in other gods. You'd be like, wow, that's weird. They're really tripping out. Yeah, And they enslaved some other ones of these guys, and now they're keeping them as slaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down tonight and kill the firstborn of all those ones that are worshiping other gods. You'd be like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Be like, well, because I don't want them worshiping other gods. So you would tell me, you would warn me, excuse me, Jaron, do you realize that by killing their firstborn, they'll never worship you? So I thought you wanted them to worship you. I do. I'm the only God. Can we think of a better way than going and killing their firstborn child? No. That's all I can think of. Pretty much think I just need to kill their firstborn, and then they're going to, it's insanity. Why would, and then again, you tell people this and they're just like, but he needed to, you know. Let's see what we got here. Jaron, God gave Adam and Eve one rule, which he knew they would break. If you told your son not to touch the stove, he should listen to you, not anyone else. Wait, what? God gave Adam and Eve one rule, which he knew they would break. Okay, now I'm really confused. So what you're saying is God wanted everyone to be fallen? He wanted us all to be born in sin? He wanted death to be part of the world? Because that doesn't make sense to me. Why were we told that we're fallen and we're born sinners? But you're saying that's on purpose. And if God gave Adam and Eve one rule, which they broke, and he knew they would break it, so then he knew Satan was down there and he knew Satan would tempt them to do it, right? So that just seems like, because God says, well, now you're going to have birth pains, and now you're going to have this and that, you're going to have disease. And so God knew they would break it when he made it. Again, I think that doesn't make any sense to me. God was like, those apples were mine. Yeah, I wanted those apples, not you. I'm getting bashed on Facebook. Jesus is now God to Christians. Yes, he is. Which makes no sense. But here's the problem. You can tell what's happening here. What's happening is Christianity, it's just a story. It's just a book. And words can mean anything. So you're able to always correct. This is why the Bible is infallible. You can't prove it wrong because it's just words. So people could just say it means something else. I mean, how many times do I need to tell you about Romans 13? Romans 13 is all the evidence you need. I'm telling you. Especially if you go back and look at, there's like things where it says, oh, well, the kings that run this place are lying and they're making joke, and it's like, okay, if that was true, then Romans 13 can't be true. And, oh wait, Romans is right after the Gospels, first book maybe? Oh no, that's Acts. Where's Romans? I should know these things. Where's the Gospel? Romans 13. Okay. So again, Romans 13. Tell me if we have a problem with this. Let everyone be subject to the higher authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those who exist, who have been appointed by God. And those who exist, let me start over again. Let everyone be subject to the higher authorities, for there exists no authority except from God, and those who exist have been appointed by God. Therefore, he who resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist bring on themselves condemnation. Okay, that is telling you that your government, your mayor, your city council, you name it, your governor, your president of the United States, your Führer of Germany, your chancellor of, I don't know, what do they call the person in China? President? All the people, the terrible leaders that we've had, terrible governments. There's terrible governments pretty much in every country right now. Maybe there's some that don't, but pretty much every country is full of tyrants and disgusting excuses for humans. This says, let everyone be subject to the higher authorities. In most books, it says government. For there exists no authority except from God. So that's telling you that any authority figure is from God. And their sole existence is to have been appointed by God. And therefore, if you resist the authority, you resist the ordinance of God. This is so clearly written by government that you are mentally deficient if you can't see that. Sorry to say, not trying to be rude. There's nothing else I can say. There's no rhyme or reason to make anybody believe this except for their entire indoctrination has overwhelmed their opinions, their ability to think. For rulers are not a terror, not to the good work, but to the evil. Do you believe that? Our rulers are a terror, not to the good works, but to evil. Dost thou wish then not to fear the authority? Then do what is good, and thou will have praise from it. So we're just supposed to do what is good, and we will have praise from our government. Get your vaccine, okay? Please get your boosters. Your government told you. When they come out with the social credit score, you better just go along with it because they are not a terror to good work, but to the evil. And if you're going to go against them, you're going to bring damnation to yourself. How do we not see that the way the world is a direct result of people believing this book? They've let governments overrun things. They've let government become too big. They've let government take whatever they wanted from you. For it is God's minister to thee for good. The government is God's minister to us for good. But if thou does what is evil, fear, for not without reason does it carry the sword. So it's not without reason that our government has all the guns and ammunition. It's because they get rid of the evil. For it is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on he who does evil. Yeah, like Jeffrey Epstein, all these people who do evil, clearly the government is there to bring wrath on them. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only because of the wrath, but also for conscience sake. For conscience sake, we should be subject to these higher powers. For this is also why you pay tribute, for they are ministers of God, serving unto this very end. Oh yeah, all governments that I've ever seen, Mao Zedong, they're all ministers of God. Render to all men whatever is their due. Tribute to whom tribute is due, taxes to whom taxes are due, fear to whom fear is due, honor to whom honor is due. Give me a freaking break. Now, it's not even that difficult. It's not a big deal. Let's just say, yeah, you're right. Some things in the Bible have been added by government, have been added by various people, and they obviously are not the word of God. We know this because this cannot be true because there's stories in the Bible that describe corrupt governments. So if they're corrupt governments, but God put them there and they're there for why? None of that makes any sense. None of it. No, no man anything except to love one another. Okay, comes as verse 8, yet verse 7 says, render to all men whatever is due. Tribute to whom tribute, taxes to whom taxes, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. The next line, owe no man anything except to love one another. What? Did you not just tell me to pay taxes to who taxes are due? But now I owe no man anything? Seems a little confusing to me. Again, it shouldn't be confusing because it's words of men. It's not even a big deal. It's kind of a collection of stories. It's going to get some things right, some things wrong. If we didn't read it from the perspective of God must have wrote this, then we would see that it's just another book. But the problem is we've been fooled. We were given the book and said, here, God wrote this. He wants you to read it. So then you read it with reverence and you're like, oh, yes, all the governors are placed there by God. Yes, they do. I should just do good if I want good to happen to me. And we get it locked into this little crazy world. Just reading it to see if there's anything else here in 13. If there's any other commandment is summed up as saying, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love does no evil to a neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law. So again, I mean, love does no evil to the neighbor, but God sometimes kills your firstborn. Right? But he loves you, but kills your firstborn if you don't believe in him. We have that kind of God. Then we have Jesus who comes and says, love your enemies, turn the other cheek. What? How come a little while back you killed the firstborn of people's children or you killed people's children because they didn't believe in you? But now you're saying, turn the other cheek, love your enemy. Okay, now we'll do that. And then you read in Revelation, and then Jesus is going to come back and he's going to kill all his enemies. I thought, didn't he tell us to love his enemies? You get very confused there. And yes, we are going to open up the phones. We're at that time. So phones are going to open right now. You guys can come on and you can give me your opinion. You can tell me where I'm wrong, or you can tell me that I'm right. I'm going to set the clock at like 4 minutes today. We'll set it at 4 and see if that's enough time. And I didn't really give you much of the contradictions, but we can go through those another time. I still don't. What's wrong? I like the name of the show being The Words of Man. I really do, because it's what I'm giving you. And I want you to recognize that the words that you're hearing from me are the words of man. And I'm going to be reading the Bible, which is the words of man. There is no words of God. Okay. God wouldn't write a book because books can be changed, mistranslated, confused, corrupted. And we're even supposed to believe that God is responsible for the languages changing. That they tried to build a tower to God, and then, which is just hilarious, because why wouldn't God just sit back and laugh at the fact that God isn't a thing like we are? You can't build a tower to God. He's not there in the flesh. So you can build a tower as high as you want. You'll never reach God. That's not how God works. So instead, he got scared. Uh-oh, they're going to come get me. I better scatter them around. Why not just let them keep building, God? Imagine that I'm God and I got my little beings down there. And I'm like, they're so stupid. I could just move over there. They'll never get me. So instead, wouldn't I just let them build and laugh at them? No, instead I smashed their little building, and then scattered them all around the house and gave them all different languages. That'll fix them. I mean, imagine if you were talking to me, you would call the police. You would call authorities and say, listen, guys, there's this crazy man that I'm friends with that has created little beings, and he's basically being a tyrant to them, and he's killing some of them, and he's getting rid of their firstborns, and he has this plan at the end that he's going to do all these crazy things, and he basically subjected them all to death and cancer and things that don't need to be there. He could just snap his fingers and make it disappear, but instead he's just allowing them to live through it. You see my point? That it cannot be correct. Cannot be correct. There's nothing inside me that even for a second makes me feel like, oh, I don't know, Jaron, I'd be worried that could be God. No. I'm going to read a couple of these and then we'll open the lines. I think belief in God inspires people to be better, but the writings are man's attempt to use belief as a way to control and profit. Excellent. I do believe that. I'm not saying that belief in God is bad. I believe that there is a creator. You absolutely should believe in the creator. You absolutely should be appreciative, thankful, in awe of the world. This world is so magical. We don't think of it that way because we've been corrupted. Our minds have been shut and have been indoctrinated with a stupid materialistic belief. We need to erase all that and picture where we're at. And don't picture the globe earth and don't picture a flat earth because we don't even know that. As far as just think of where you're at. You are in an existence that makes no sense. Okay? That alone is a gift. That alone should be awe-inspiring. We have a sun and a moon that operate independently, going to and fro, doing what they do, keeping perfect time in the sky. That's a sign of a creation, a sign of intelligence, a sign of wonder. Okay? So we should be filled constantly with this feeling of wonder and glee and joy, happiness, amazement. And instead we're told, nope, the moon is exactly what we say. We've been there. We walked on it. We played golf. The sun takes this many years to get from the center of the sun to the corona of the sun. It's this hot. It's this far away. And they just dialed everything down to a very materialistic belief. And then when they give you this endless universe, it completely erases any need for a creator because they've told you, oh, this thing's coming to they don't need creators. They're natural. Natural explosions in the space, not even in space. Natural explosions that create space. That's what's created everything. And some people buy it, right? And then they go through the evolution thing and they believe evolution, which is an insane belief because it's impossible and doesn't happen. So is there kind of a macro I guess, I don't know what you would call it, but people do adapt, right? Things do adapt. So there is adaptation. But as far as evolving to have how do you evolve to have a reproductive system? Well, what happened when it started to get close to a reproductive system? It didn't work, so what? So there was no reproduction, so what? And then people die. So you have to have a working system to procreate, right? Well, that doesn't work if we're talking about evolution. All right, let me get to StreamYard. Then I'll open up the phones as well. And we can go till 6. We can go another hour 45 tonight because we didn't do last week. But mostly this show will be 2 hours. An hour kind of presentation, an hour conversation. So you can now go to tinyurl.com/crypto I'm sorry, Cornerism. I'll put it on the screen right now. Let me get this up there. Where are we at here? Image. Okay, there's your phone number and your URL. Phone number is not open yet. Give me a second. And this is ready. Start virtual camera. Go. Okay, we're in the room. If anybody else joins, we got you ready. We're good. I believe. Oh, I do have to line that up. Okay, we'll get to that. And then we're going to open the phone lines. 888-698-FLAT is going to be the phone number. So if you're trying to say something to me in chat and I kept missing it, you can feel free to call in. If you use the phone, obviously you don't have to be on camera. If you use StreamYard, it'd be nice if you are, but you don't have to be. We can just leave me as the only good-looking person on the show. I don't mind. Let's go to call in studio. Oh, boy. I got to put money on here. I don't know how long. I don't know. It's not going to last that much. Well, let's see how long it lasts. I got $4.09. I have a feeling this is going to end quickly. Let's go to my shows. The show. Start show. Maybe I should put. I'll leave 2 people on. Start show. And that one. And ready?
Ready to connect.
Ready.
Click connect to show now.
Go. Boom. Boom.
Welcome, host.
Thank
You are
you.
now in the host room
I
and
know.
can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
Thank you, lady. Appreciate it. All right. So the phone lines are open. 888-698-FLAT. That's 888-698-3528. Or you can come on through tinyurl.com/cornerism. Or I can just keep talking. One or the other. But those are open and ready. Let's okay, we're good there, and we're good there. All right, nobody else come on. All right, let me check over here. It means to honor your word. If you agree to something, then do it. That is respect equals love. Don't know what that was getting at. Pitch.
Hey, Jaron.
What's up, boss?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Been looking forward to calling into this show.
I bet. Let's hear it.
I do think first off, I want to say I think what you're doing is very biblical, actually. In being this critical, scrutinizing, really analyzing scripture. I think we are supposed to prove all things. That's something that is biblical. So actually, even if you can disprove the Bible, it's actually being biblical all the way to the end and disproving it. And I think that scrutinizing the scriptures is something that, say, like the Vatican didn't want us to do.
Right.
Going back through history, they didn't want people to have a copy of the text, have the ability to look at what things are being said. That said, I do think, and I'm very green to the Bible. There's still a lot of scripture that I don't know, but in my understanding of it so far, I do feel like when you talk about the Most High of the Old Testament, for example, like the let's just like with Adam and Eve, he knew God knows all things. To us, as we go in our day to day, we don't know the future. We're free to choose the stones that we're going to step on. God just happens to know what steps we're going to take, how we're going to get where we get to. And so once Eve bit the apple, that opened it up so that we now know good and evil. Instead of having this world where we know the minimal good all the way to maximum good, we now can go even further down and get into what is evil. And with our free will, we're able to choose between good and evil. So once you see what is good and see what is evil, if you genuinely of your own choice choose to do good or to do evil, it's now a truer choice. It's more authentic to who you are, to what you're choosing. And I
agree with that.
I think okay, yeah. So good. And then I think that as far as like the God of the Old Testament, going off of the examples of the flood and of Sodom and Gomorrah, the people who were attacked, who were killed in the Old Testament were not actually people at that point. Like you would be sympathetic towards someone. If you were talking to someone, you wouldn't just like attack them right away. You would talk with them, work with them, if you had a disagreement or anything. But if you had someone who was absolutely pure evil, had nothing but thoughts of wickedness, wanting to hurt, harm, destroy other people, those people would have to be stopped. And that is what what God did. He was stopping this pure evil.
So couldn't he have, let me ask you this. So could he have stopped it in another way? For example, here's the problem with that, is that I recognize that if I want my son to be a good person, then I probably shouldn't advocate for him to go murder anything. Because if he goes and kills deer on a hunt, or he goes whale killing, or he goes cat killing, then I would recognize that that's going to do something to him. It's going to make him a worse person. So as God, if I saw that there's giants or corrupted humans and they just are wicked, evil people, why wouldn't I choose just to snap my fingers or make them disappear rather than then to go get people that I love and care about, the Israelites, and employ them to go kill? Because once you have people killing other nations, you have to recognize that that then creates a killing spirit in you. You are a killer. It's what you do. You go and kill other nations. So, and then God says, like, keep their women and children for yourself, for your slaves. So they're not that corrupted. If God didn't care that their wives and children didn't need to be murdered, they could come back and become slaves. So I think that the idea of that makes sense to you, might make some sense to some, but the practicality doesn't. And again, God would be the best parent possible, not one of the worst. And we would all say, if any parent ever said, oh, to teach my child this, or I had them go kill this, we would say, that was not the best method for you to teach your child. And just for me, if I was going to die, let's say I found out tomorrow I'm dying in a year. Jaron, you're going to be gone in a year. I'm like, what? Oh, man. So I realize my son's not going to remember me. He's only 2 now, so he's not going to remember me. So my wife and I talk. She's like, you should write a book so that he remembers you. Okay. So I start writing this book about all the things about me. And so I would leave out the things of the book that I felt would make him a worse child. So for instance, if I used to, for whatever reason, have demanded from my former son animal sacrifices, I would kind of recognize that that's probably not the best thing to tell my next son, because I don't want him to think that that's okay, because animal sacrifices are not okay. And we're told that God put that in there, that God wanted animal sacrifices. In fact, I've heard a pastor say the reason why God looked favorably upon Abel but not upon Cain is because Abel gave what God wanted, which was the killing of animals. He didn't want the fruits. He didn't want the vegetables. So the character is the one I have a problem with. It's not so much the stories as much as it is, I believe we've been given a character that is unworshipable. It has he's not worthy of worship at all. And the test here on earth is to determine who continues to worship a God that has no reason to be worshipped, other than if you're afraid, if you're scared, if you think you're going to go to hell. And imagine that moral choice. You're making the choice to worship something immoral so that you don't get burned for eternity. That to me is the test. But go ahead.
I think that's a very, very fair criticism, a very fair point of view to take. To kind of try to rebut that, I do think it was already in us. As far as like, why did the Israelites have to go through and do this? It was already in us. We're already fallen. We're already tainted by death. And so we were told to do these things that we would have never had to do had we never fallen, because maybe if through killing these titans and these giants, that's something that's memorable, just like the dragon slaying stories, like from England and everything. Like if you do these things, it's memorable, so it's even more able to be passed down and be preserved through, especially if God would know that his word would be hidden, would be kept from people that positions of authority of the pagan heathen governments. They would try to hide God's word. So this makes it something that you can pass down to people, and it sticks in people's heads. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember when I took out this 12-foot giant, and all the odds were against me, and I was able to take him down. I do think that there are actually, I think where like with the women and children, I think they were actually taken out too because they were also very corrupt. And these were like when the Bible's like women and children, it's not like how we are now, like men, women, and children is like us and women and then our kids. These were like spawns of evil that were soulless.
Where does it say that? Where are you
Um,
getting that from?
well, that's who like referring to like Sodom and Gomorrah, they were continually wicked. All the men, the women, and the children,
Right.
the men would swap around with each other and be with each other. They would trade wives, they would trade children, they would sacrifice children. And like when you talk about killing the firstborn, I think God gave the Pharaoh plenty of opportunities to repent from what he was doing, and the Pharaoh did not. And the people of Egypt were already like the king's high council that Aaron and Moses went up against during the plagues. They were already sacrificing their own children, like how there is like sacrifice even today through that pagans do. These people were already sacrificing kids. They were already sacrificing themselves, and that even goes into like Mayan culture and everything. Like sacrifice was a practice of the heathen, and I think part of what
Yeah, but God is the one promoting it, right?
What's that?
He's promoting sacrifice. God.
God did want the sacrifice. Once we fell from God's grace, God set up a standard that was going to be impossibly hard for people to follow. If you look at all of the 700 rules or however many of the Old Testament that there are, no person could follow all of those. I think it would be impossible. Correct. And there's just so much. And so this was to show, like when man fell, especially because of what the devil had told Eve, was you can be like a little God. God took that as like if you want to know what the standards of God are, here are some of these rules that you would have to follow, and no man is able to follow them because we all fall short of the glory of God. And so that for people who try to follow those rules, they're going to fall short. And that's part of then with the New Testament. Jesus came to fulfill that and say, hey, those are like impossible standards. All you have to do is have faith and truly live at like the example that Jesus set, where it is being nice to one another. And that's kind of would jump us off into another topic. But I like this. I do think like once we did fall and God said, okay, now there's going to be like sacrifices. Like in the beginning of creation, before the fall, there was no death. So God would not have wanted animal sacrifice, but God, I think.
But you're saying God knows all things. So if God knew all things, then he knew there would be sacrifices.
Yes, he knew ultimately. He said, okay, Eve is gonna bite the apple, and then Adam is gonna follow, and then Adam's gonna try to blame God. And I think that's part of, if God would have said, can you forgive us? But Adam, I think, tried to pass the blame onto our Creator. And then we fell, and God knew that there was going to be this fall, and he said, okay, Adam doesn't know it yet, but Eve is going to approach him and say, hey, can you bite this apple with me? And once God had already set it up, like that's why I think our genes, like the way we have degraded since the fall, and through these mutations and everything, and why like certain bacteria act the way they do and everything, God knew that we were going to go through a fall period where he was able to say, okay, everything is going to degrade according to this way that the Creator had set. And so God was going to say, okay, once they fall, now there's going to be murder that's going to happen, and sacrifice. Things will be pre-fall. There was no sacrifice, there was no death, so animals couldn't be sacrificed. And then once the fall came, God to show how much of a different world.
Hold on, that's not true.
Is.
That's because remember Abel sacrificed to God dead animals, which was well, that was way before the fall. Or you're saying, okay, I get what you're saying. Sorry, I get what you're saying.
Yep. And so it was to kind of show.
So you're talking about when you're talking about
right
before the fall, you're talking about just Adam and Eve then.
Yeah, when it was pre-fall, there was that's when everything was like a very good paradise.
Okay.
And then it was kind of God's way of showing once man fell and entered into this world where we now have a choice between good and evil, God was going to show stark contrast of the difference between what was pre-fall and post-fall.
Okay, and then just to correct something you said that the Pharaoh, he gave the Pharaoh a bunch of chances. It actually says God hardened his heart so that he wouldn't allow it because it showed the glory of God. So God actually made Pharaoh not allow the Hebrews to go, because then God was able to do what he did, and then that showed the glory of God. So God's responsible for Pharaoh not allowing the Hebrews to go. Even though they wanted to go worship their own God, it's God who caused them not to do that. And then the other thing is that I was going to bring up, and I don't remember now, just, the beginning of, that's when I was just reading that part. There's a part where God wants to kill Moses, where he's about to, says, and the Lord came upon Moses and would have killed him. But Sephora, which is his wife, I think, took a piece of flint and cut off her son's foreskin, and touching his feet, she said, you are a spouse of blood to me. Then God let Moses go. At that time, she said, a spouse of blood in regard to the circumcision. Just weird story. And I mean, what is your thought on circumcision? Would you do that to your children?
So I think why that was there is to show like devotion, like maybe wives are supposed to have devotion to their husbands. I myself, I don't quite know too much about circumcision. I don't have a wife or kids or anything right now, so I haven't really given too much thought to it. So that it's not something I can actually answer right now. I know there are certain things like with circumcision, as far as like Catholicism go, which I'm not a fan of. It's how I was raised Catholic, so
so was I.
But I've renounced my Catholicism.
What's your reason for doing that?
The Vatican and basically the corruption and the religion. I think a lot of stuff goes back to Rome. And
so let's stop right there though. Do you realize who wrote the New Testament? Do you know who organized the books and put them in? Do you know who is responsible for hiding books under the Vatican? And it is the Vatican. It's the Catholic Church.
And they have a lot of influence over what is in the Bible that we have.
Right.
But I do think, because the Bible says that God's word can be preserved, and I do feel.
So hold on real quick.
That,
let's just think about what you're saying. So if the book says that, but we know that the Catholics are the ones who wrote part of it and organized the books, how hard would it have been for them to write that in there so that you look at it today and think they couldn't have changed it because the book says you can't change it?
Well, I don't think you can change like the ultimate message of the Bible.
But why do you think that? Why do you think that? Because the book says that, right?
Well, they like that because God's word would be mightier than man. So if God says he's going to preserve his word, he's going to preserve it all the way through until it's able to get printed. And then we have the ability to hold the word for ourselves, because God logically would be able to do, if he was all powerful, he could make it so that his word lasts, despite the Vatican trying to interfere. And I do think that the Vatican would want to interfere heavily, try to diminish the word, take away from it, remove things, which the Bible says what will happen to those who remove. I think the Vatican knows, though, what side they're on. High up, not all Catholics are bad. But
you legitimately think if I rewrote the Bible today and I put in my own words in here, I put in my own verses, you think something would happen to me? You think that some accident would happen or a famine would take over my family because I changed the word, even though there's some 20,000 versions of this book?
I see, and I'm not I can't say what would happen to people, but I do think like if you were going to rewrite, and I think that's part of why there are so many versions of the Bible. A lot of them say little different things here or there, but the message of the Bible is still the same. Like Jesus Christ being the Savior and forgiving mankind, and God creating this world for us, and then going through a fall and everything, and living in this kind of like trial period where we are kind of showing our souls to God through our own expression. I think that those messages are kept through these various versions, and you can, like, in technicality, something like the King James version might have more precise wording, using like thee or thou to address, or the
Right.
or thee or thou to address one or plural, things like that. But I think messages are kept despite certain words. And I do know, like, the Catholic version of the Bible, verses have been taken out, even like mentioning Jesus as the Savior. But I think that represents the Catholic Church, who has, and these people that are in these positions of power, they're very highly organized, and they have been able to control and manipulate scriptures for a long time. And I do think that there is a lot that the Vatican holds on to, and I think they're kind of the main the main henchmen of the adversary right now on this earth. They're, them and like the Jesuits and the false Jews and these people. I won't say that word again for the algorithm or whatever, but like you want to, or those people are the ones that want to keep this book away from you and I, and to keep the true messages. So I think there are forces that have been at this work for a long time, trying to, do their part of their side of the war, the spiritual war, and want to keep us from the actual truth.
Okay. Any final words? Because I did let you go too long. We've got people waiting.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the time. And I do think, if hypothetically, if there were no people that were out here trying to heavily suppress us, I do think it would be a lot more clear, a lot more concise. But I really I think that's just about it. But I really do think, to tie it back to the Earth, I mean, that 66.6 tilt, the 66,600 miles an hour, and the 0.666 feet of curve, that I think shows the only one that would be willing to lie and gain from the cosmology lie would be the devil, who wants his own cosmology, his own world.
Or all the wicked, evil people. Think about how many wicked and evil people there are in this world that get off on the one-eye symbolism. Because what it does is it creates believers, and the believers are exactly what caused this world to fall. I mean, as far as fall in my terms, right? So the world is gone because we allow wicked to be wicked. We allow evil to be evil. The world is gone because we have stopping people from doing wicked things. Because why? Well, Christians think that they just have to sit around and do nothing. They just have to sit around and wait for Jesus to come back. Jesus is never coming out of the sky. It's a joke. And the people who profit from that are the elite, are the governments. And so doesn't it make sense that if you're the government and you're just getting away with everything that you want, subjecting people to tyranny, you're getting away with that every day. So why wouldn't you create something that keeps people in place, keeps people in line? And a great thing to do would be to tell people, oh, well, that you don't get into heaven if you're rich, so that everybody is just poor. And then Jesus told people, don't put money away for tomorrow. Don't put things away for tomorrow. Your reward will be in heaven. Well, guess what? That's why you don't have any money. That's why I don't have any money. That's why people we know don't have any money. Why? Because our families were raised Catholic or Christian, and so they didn't put any money away. So who is running the world right now? It's the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. Why? Because they have family money. So the things that Jesus told people to do are what put us in the position that we're in. Okay. People loved Jesus more than they loved their father, mother, and their sons or daughter. Why? Because the book tells you better. I mean, do you honestly love Jesus more than you do your parents?
I love Jesus with all my heart, and I think through that I love my parents and my family and my friends, and really, I mean, all people we're supposed to love, because it's the example that Jesus.
Yes, but Jesus says if you love your family more than him, then you're not worthy of him.
Well, if Jesus is the creator, then the creator would have a whole separate tier
but Jesus
of love.
the only way we would know that he's the creator is because of the book, right? So we're supposed to believe in the words of a book that were clearly written by men. Whether it was inspired or not, let's leave that out. It was definitely written by men. God would recognize that we would know it was written by men. We wouldn't know if it was inspired or not unless we actually read the text and it matched what we would see as inspired. If we read it and it said,
Yes,
go
you can
murder
verify
everybody, go bury your neighbor, go rape your neighbor's wife. If it said that, we would recognize that it's not God. We would say, this book is garbage. It's not from God, right? We would have every right to do that. But we're told,
Yes.
no, whatever's in the book, even if it doesn't match your morals, even if it doesn't describe what you would consider to be a good God, even if it doesn't do the things you would want in life, you still have to follow the rules. It's like, no, it's clearly a setup. I'm just reading part of this. Like, there's things in here that tell us that it can't be God. Why would God care about you killing a turtle dove and then in front of him and then sprinkling its blood on his altar 7 times? That's not a God I will ever worship. What would be the purpose of
that was to show part of the preposterousness of a man thinking that they can be like the Creator.
What do you mean?
Like doing all of these things where it's like these very specific rituals and sacrifices. This was stuff that was to show, like, man, if you wanted to be like me or to try to be like the Creator, you would have to go through all of these things. You would have to abide by all these rules and follow all these laws and statutes and commandments and do every little thing down to the detail. Once a week or every day of your life, you would have to follow these things that no man can live up to.
All right, gotcha.
It's to mark the shortness of the glory of that man falls short of the glory of God. But I also just I can end it with here.
What glory of God? Though?
Because
all right, yeah, you come back.
So I think giving like all of my love to the Creator, I'm still that doesn't detract from the amount that I love my fellow man or my family or anything like that. Like I have absolute love for my parents, but I'm still able to love my Creator, love my friends.
But you have to love Jesus more than your family. You get that? It's not equal. There's no equal. Jesus says if you love your family more than him, you're not worthy of him. So you have to make sure you love Jesus more. The guy you've never met from 2,000 years ago who told some lady he was going to kill her children because she gave food to the wrong gods, that Jesus, you better love him. You better worship him more than your parents and your children, or you're not worthy of him. And that to me is like, this is the trick. This is the test. The real Creator is testing you of whether or not you're going to be an idiot and fall for that. Why would you worship a man you've never met over words you've never seen him write or say that other men wrote in a book about him? Why would you do that?
To tie that off, because I think this ties in really well. So it is through faith. We have to have faith, and God. Okay, so says,
again, but hold on. Where else would you have faith and it ever be good for you? This is the trick I'm telling you. The tricks that they have you believe in are the elite's way of making sure that you end up in a bad position and they end up rich and powerful and in control. Because if you have faith in anything, that's not very smart. Where is faith helping you? Does faith help you?
Say you're building a house with somebody, you're going to have faith that they're going to show up to help you build the house.
Okay, but
we have to trust one another to some extent. And if there were no lies and if people were genuinely good to one another.
Hold on. What if you never met that man? What if you never met the man you said is going to show up on time? What if you only read a book that said that he'll be there, but every time he was supposed to be, he's not? Then is having faith he's going to be there next Saturday a good thing?
No, because you would have proved your faith.
Well, okay, there's Jesus who said he would be back quickly. Jesus said 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, anything can be asked of God, it will be given to him. Those are all proven false.
I think quickly to Jesus, the time span might be different.
See, again, then what is he writing to us for? Why would he write in code, I'll be back quickly, quote unquote, but really, I mean, 5,000 years, and these humans, they're going to, what? We wouldn't know that. We live in a human time scale. So if God's going to write a book for us, then it wouldn't be smart to write it in his time frame. How are we supposed to know that?
That is a good point, and I'll have to look into that a little more.
Okay, call back next week.
But hold on, can I say one thing?
Yes, go ahead.
One last thing. So I think why we are supposed to love our Creator is God says, how can you claim to love your Creator who you have never seen if you cannot show love to your fellow man who you can see?
I agree with that.
People who claim to love God have to be able to and have to, but like you have to show love to your fellow man to be able to truly declare that you love the Creator. I do think that faith is a very sturdy bridge that allows us to walk on, so to speak.
Yeah, but I mean, faith would be good if it has evidence that gives you reason for that faith, right?
Do you think if faith is well placed, then it's worth having?
Well, I have faith, I guess you would say, in a creator, right? I mean, I think that things around me prove that. So I think that the sun and moon prove intelligent design. I think that just our existence proves intelligent design. So that I'm totally in agreement with. Where I deviate is when you introduce a book and you tell me it's written by or about or inspired by that creator, then I should be able to read it and only see signs of that being true, not see things that clearly lay it out as not true. The creator who loves all and does all these things does not also demand animals be sacrificed in front of him. Doesn't even make sense. Why would you ever believe that? It's just, God didn't tell you that. He's never asked you to sacrifice an animal. And if people talk about Abraham's sacrifice, like when he took Isaac up to the hill, right? But it's like any one of us, let's take somebody who's a believer, P-Brain. If P-Brain got on his YouTube channel today and said, God came to me last night and told me to take my son to the top of an altar and I'm taking him up this afternoon, every single one of us would call the police. Every single one of us would say he's demented and he's lost his fucking mind. But because it's in a book, people are like, oh, but this time this is cool. This time, I think God should give all of his inheritance to Israel and this guy's kids. It's a joke. Why would that ever be okay?
I think it was to show God wanted to know that man would put his faith in the Creator. God knew he would call off. Okay,
but you realize if he did that today, we would put that person in prison. Do you understand that?
Yeah, but this was back in ancient times.
Right, but he wrote about it in the book that is given to us. Right. Just like I said, if I wrote a book for my son, it wouldn't be smart to put things in there that he would read and go, huh, Dad must think this is okay. Dad must be okay with this. The book doesn't even ever tell us that. It doesn't say all of a sudden like, and the reason God did this was for this reason, this reason, this reason.
Yeah. Well, I do think that those shocking stories that resonate with our fallen side are there because they helped keep the preservation of the story. For whatever reason, things that are traumatizing to us or are, very violent or anything like that, they stick with us.
That's a bad
very
thing.
Well.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let you go. Come back next week.
All right. Take care, Jaron.
All right. We'll get you next. Wheelchair Bear. 1 second. I just want to read this one line. Because, I mean, things like this tell me this is not written by, what time is it? Okay, we're good. It's not written by or inspired by the Creator. We're talking about Leviticus chapter 13. Well, let's go chapter 10. I'm sorry, Leviticus 1, chapter 10. Leviticus 1, verse 10. If his Holocaust offering is from the flock, that is, a sheep or a goat, he must bring a male without blemish. This he shall slaughter before the Lord at the north side of the altar. God wants you to kill animals in front of him here. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall splash its blood on the sides of the altar. When the offerer has cut it up into pieces, the priest shall lay these together with the head and suet on the top of the wood and on the fire of the altar. The inner organs and the shanks, however, the offerer shall first wash with water. The priest shall offer them up and then burn the whole offering on the altar as a holocaust, a sweet-smelling oblation to the Lord. So now the Lord loves the sweet smell of burning animals. If he offers a bird as a holocaust to the Lord, he shall choose a turtle dove or a pigeon for his offering. Having brought it to the altar where it is to be burned, the priest shall snap its head loose and squeeze out the blood against the side of the altar. Its crop and feathers shall be removed and thrown on the ash heap from the east side of the altar. Then, having a split bird down the middle, without separating the halves, the priest shall burn it on the altar, over the wood of the fire, as a holocaust, a sweet-smelling oblation to the Lord. That's the end of chapter 1. What is going on? We should read this and recognize that's not God. Why would that God be worthy of worship? A God who's demanding the severed heads of turtle doves? So again, just because somebody creates you doesn't make them worthy of worship. They also have to have qualities that make them worthy of worship. It's a test. We know this by looking at relationships and husband and wives, that we would never say that the husband who threatens the wife and tells her to do crazy things, we would never say, that's a good relationship that girl's with that guy. You'd be like, no, she loves him because she's afraid of him. She loves him because he threatened to put her in hell or in fire and brimstone if she left him. That's not, we would recognize that that's a terrible relationship. But when the book tells people like, oh, I have a great relationship with the Lord. What do you mean? You worship somebody who demands the killing of animals, who kills nations, who doesn't care much for people, who says he's never going to change, who says he's not a man, who says he doesn't walk on earth, then becomes a man who does walk on earth, calls himself the Son of Man after saying in the Old Testament, he's not the Son of Man. God, I'm not the Son of Man. Jesus comes and says, I'm the Son of Man. And we're like, those are the same guys. Oh, yeah, sure they are. I believe it. One tells you to love your neighbor, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. The other one says, kill your neighbor. I'm going to go kill those people for being terrible. Wheelchair Bear, welcome to the show.
Hey, you're making good points. Sacrifices are really wasteful.
You think?
Right? And then also killing doves, like here anyways, is illegal. So when you're disobeying.
Well, let's go back in time because people will say we're in the wrong time and they're not demanding it now. We don't kill doves now.
Yeah. So that the last guy, Pitch Luminary. I
like that kid.
He sounded exactly like the guy that Adam Green was debating, a minister.
Mm-hmm.
And they all believe that, so Catholics aren't really Christians. And so that's...
I've heard that. But by what way though? Because if we're talking about the definition of Christian is a belief that Christ is God, right?
And then also, like you said, Adam said they wrote the Bible. But then later on, that minister said, yeah, well, I'm not a flat earther or anything, but I want to believe what I can see.
Right.
And then Adam Green started talking about evolution. He said, what's more realistic, Adam and Eve or evolution?
Right. That's why I don't like Adam Green, because Adam Green goes, he does what everybody does. Everybody becomes jaded with religion, and then they go and they look for the opposite of religion, which is the guys waving their hands saying, we tell only truths. We would never lie to you. We would never, everything's based off of evidence. And then you go tell them about Edwin Hubble. What about this? What about the fact that we are the center of the universe? All observations tell us that. And yet these scientists without bias said we had to stay away from the absolute horror of a unique position. Oops.
And why hasn't God had anything new to say in the last 2,000 years?
I asked that too. Yeah.
You said that?
Well, I've said that before because I've wondered why, even Jesus, I think, says, I don't remember who said it, maybe it was Jesus, said something about the generation back then. And he's like, even you guys don't believe and you've seen me. So it's like, and we're held to a much higher standard in the fact that if I got to put my finger through Jesus's hand, pretty sure I would believe him. Right?
Yeah.
So, but yet that person's called the Doubting Thomas, So I think that's weird.
You touched on the Virgin Mary a little bit, and that is one creepy thing about Catholics, how the Catholicism focuses on virgin girls. Like there's a lot of virgin girl saints, and then a Virgin Mary, of course, they repeat that.
Which is incorrect. I think it's supposed to be a maiden. I don't think that they tried to fulfill a prophecy or something, but I don't think the prophecy was that she would be a virgin, like as in not having sex.
Yeah. And then, so there's a lot of girl saints that have seen Jesus, like South America and Spain and stuff.
Hey, that's one thing you brought that up though. The Guadalupe thing is one thing I have never been able to fully understand. I would like to look into that further because that's like a history story. I mean, tons of people reported on the sun coming to Earth or something. You know what I'm talking about? And when the Lady of Guadalupe appeared?
Lady of Guadalupe is, was she a virgin?
That's Mary.
I think so.
That is Mary. That's Jesus' mom. Same person.
Yeah, Mary, but it was virgin girls. It was little girls that saw her.
There was like a group of 3 children. I think 2 were girls, 1 was a guy.
Oh, really?
I think if I have to look at the story again. But
it could have been. It was 3. So
what is wrong with this pencil?
Everybody is believing these 3 kids.
Well, no, there was a whole group of people there. I mean, there's thousands of people that were supposed to be there for the day that Mary was going to talk to them. And supposedly there was like, I forgot the story. I got to look it up. It was either raining or wasn't. And then the sun came close to earth, and then everybody either got drenched or dried up from being in the rain. I don't remember. I got to look into it. It's one of those.
And then there's a lot of similar stories, right?
There's like, the Jesus in a piece of toast, or the Jesus on a tree branch.
They became like Our Lady of Lourdes, or
I don't know that. Yeah, I just know that one story that seems like it's a little bit more.
Well, that's huge in Mexico, like huge.
Yeah,
and it also depicts Mary as Hispanic too, right?
Yes,
because that's where she's from. Are you going to call this losing thine religion?
No, I don't like that either.
Well, come on.
It's not bad, but it's not good. I think I'm just going to call it the word of man. Because this way, nobody thinks what I'm saying is important. What I'm saying is just the word of man. It's just me. I'm just a man. I'm just talking. And this way, people don't think that. I don't like when you say things like truth in there. I don't want truth in there, because I think we're all on our own journey. And I think that even if you are a Bible believer, like Pitch Lumen said, you are supposed to leave no stone unturned. You are supposed to prove all things. Now, I think that that's kind of embarrassing for the Bible, because you're not going to be able to prove that a snake talked. You're not going to be able to prove that a man walked on water. You're not going to be able to prove that Jesus rose from the dead. You're not going to be able to prove that any of the things in the Bible. So essentially, it refutes itself. You would have to have faith. So if you have to have faith, then is it true that we should prove all things? I don't know.
Yeah. The sacrifices is a big. Well, there's so many questions, but then if you're arguing against or debating a theologist or a minister or something, you'll never win. Like 1 point, there isn't 1 point that they'll concede on.
No, they'll never concede any. There's actually people who say the Bible has no contradictions. So that tells you that we've got a problem. I mean, if they can't admit that, this is why you can't. I mean, it's basically like I'm fighting two entities every day. I fight the Christians and I fight the science believers. And both of them are under some delusion that their stuff is perfect. Well, how could the earth be anything other than a sphere? We have GPS. It's like, all right, you're an idiot. I can't talk to you anymore. Then you got people over here. They're like, oh no, the Bible has no contradictions. All right, I'm out of here. I mean, it says things like there is no love and fear the Lord. That alone. So what do you mean? I'm not supposed to look. If there is no fear and love, but you tell me I'm supposed to fear the Lord, then what are you saying? That I'm not supposed to love the Lord? Well, I mean, it's just stupid. And the reason why it happens that way is because it's a gigantic book. And in a gigantic book, there is going to be tons of contradictions. And there is. And so they always try and correct them. They always try, the contradictions is like Jesus saying, oh, before Abraham, I was. So they had to go and they say, well, Jesus was the creator, right? So everything is like a correction trying to, there is no mention of the Trinity in the Old Testament. None.
And also in church, when you go to church during the consecration or whatever, the priest always says, this is my body, this is my blood. Do this in memory of me.
Right. He
doesn't say, do this and this will become me.
Right. No, he does say, do this in memory of me.
Do this in memory of me. It's like a ceremony in remembrance. But then we're told that that's the actual body and the actual blood. Very confusing.
I'll tell that story one more time just because I think it's a great story that certainly tells me something. So my mom used to be head of liturgy and music at the church, and she would be there hours after church, and I would just be running around like a little kid, playing the pews and going up on the altar. And one time I was laying up underneath the altar looking up at it, and there's this little slide door that I could see, and I was a little scared to touch it. And so there's a priest coming into the church at the time. It's like, Father Matt, come here. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what is this under here? So I kind of lay down there and look up, and he kind of lays and looks up. He's like, oh, that's the bone of a saint. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, every altar in the Catholic Church has a bone of a saint inside the altar. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I forgot about that my whole entire upbringing, right? Kind of forgot about it until one day I was listening to Savali, who is a Illuminati defector, supposedly. And she's talking about the seances that they used to do and the baby sacrifice that they used to do under the Vatican. And she said, And then they chop up all the bones into little bits, and the interviewer says, well, why do they do that? And she goes, oh, they then mail them to all the new Catholic churches to put in the altars. So talk about satanic. You basically have probably in all Catholic churches the bone of a sacrificed baby to Satan inside the altar that priests are praying over. I mean, it's just pretty scary.
Yeah, they don't advertise that, but when I became an altar boy, the priest showed us that.
Mhm.
We all said, well, where did they get the bones from the saints, and what saints? Wouldn't they should have that documented.
I would hope so. Right? Should be. Isn't there a chain of custody that we can follow?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna let you go. Oh, go ahead.
Like
I gotta
our
get the
church
timer up.
in
That's what I gotta do.
Tiny church, they had that thing, so the bone. Okay, I'll let you go.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
We got sacred knowledge, and I don't have the timer. I'll get the timer up here shortly. We got another hour to go. You guys will be fine. Oh shoot, sacred knowledge. I'm gonna go ahead. You go first.
Can you hear me?
Oh shit, we didn't have that on the screen the whole time. My bad. Go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
You're a little
Hello?
you're a little crackly.
Shoot, because I'm trying to different my tablet. Anyway,
Let's
I hope
go-
you can hear me okay.
It's a little crackly.
Sorry about that. Great show. You should call it Demystifying Holy Books.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
You know what I mean? Because that way it doesn't have to just be only the Bible, like restricted to the Bible.
True. Yeah, I wouldn't put Bible in the name of it. Mhm.
You know, or something like that. But I like God, I like what have God point to. But that's kind of misleading. They won't know what it's really about, and then you're gonna get a lot of pissed off Christians. So, you know.
That's expected.
You get them in the chat a lot. But okay, I don't know what. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, okay, a lot of this stuff. Sometimes they mention things, and I wish I could like say something about it. Like a few things. Let's talk about sacrifice and what you were talking about right now. It's kind of weird that like everything is so brutal and about sacrifice, and how it says in Genesis how we're gonna have to work for ours from this point on, you know. So it's kind of like we're here. If you look at the way things are designed, it's not really designed to serve humans. It kind of like it's serving something else. Do you feel me?
Seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if people really realize that, like if they started to look into what I've spoken about, that we had a very advanced civilization before, and they're not told about it in the Bible. That's what Eden, because Eden sounds a lot like Eden, like it got 8, like the number 8 octagon, you know, and so Eden got Eden, and Eve not only sounds like evil, but it sounds like the Eve, like the end of something. The civilization fell, so that's what they're leaving out, you know. And
The English language is such a joke. I mean, you know, it's just, evil is just live backwards.
Exactly. It's all full of inversions, and it tells you about it in that book 1984, when they're like, we're designing the English language, and instead of having bad, we're gonna have ungood, you know, stuff like that. That's how they're showing you how they control our thoughts with the language.
Right.
And so they designed the human language, and it's based on like syllables that are ancient. Sanskrit, the most ancient language, the only true language left is Sanskrit, and it's the only language left from the ancient world, from before the fall, the destruction.
So who can translate that?
Who can translate Sanskrit? That's what they speak in India.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the one that something else. Go ahead.
That's what they write in India. Well, you know, the people that write the ancient language of India, not the modern Indians, but yeah. So Sanskrit is like it's a language that retains all the proper ways that it sounds right too. Like if you ever hear like the words, that it does sound, it makes sense the way it's spoken, the way they use the syllables. And when you compare it to English is totally messed up. It messes with our thoughts, like the way that our thought patterns can function.
Yeah, it seems like it's a trick.
It's messed up. That's why there's no like any if you do like any type of rituals or mantras, you're never going to use English, because English is an inverted language. You use ancient languages for that because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as yeah, so like, oh, I wanted to. No, that's not a good thing to do. But I just wanted to. I wanted to play something from one of the masters, but I don't think it's. I have the link ready, but because people, I wanted to talk more about how they're not getting it that we've been told so much about God being outside of ourselves and now that it's kind of like when you go to Burger King or Jack in the Box, you see like now you got Coca-Cola, Sprite, orange soda. Now they even have Powerade, like the healthy thing, But
That's not healthy.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
it's not healthy. Don't drink that.
get to know who makes the decision of what choices are going to be there. You like, and I want to choke whoever put those choices there. Those are horrible choices. They should have much healthier choices. So
Okay, I have to let you go because the crackling is getting to me.
oh, I'm sorry. I think it's because I'm holding it. I was going to say that
Okay, go ahead.
the choices are wrong. So like, I just wanted to say that like they got us they got us believing that we can only choose that. Oh yeah, the ancient religions hold the truth and the Christian religion holds some truth, and they put them diametrically opposed on purpose.
Well, all religions hold some truth. I mean,
Right,
because they
but
all
that's what I meant.
talk about a creator. So
I meant to say they all hold some truth, and then they got them all diametrically opposed so that we can argue about them. And they talk about the creator, but they put it all outside of us, where in the ancient world, we didn't look at it that way. There's like a new thing that's on the block, a new kid on the block who now we look at like, instead of looking at ourselves spiritually as the eternal consciousness that's always been, it was never created, and it'll never die. We are eternal awareness. Now we look at it like outside of ourselves, and we look at us like we die. We think we die and we're going to die. We just live one life. But even the Christians have to be born again, So something going on. We're being deceived.
that is for sure. That is the point. Yes. All right, I'm gonna let you go. Let's go with David Henry. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up?
Word to your mother.
Word to my mother.
Oh, is that what they say? What can I do for you this evening?
Hey, what's it's been a while.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, it's been a while. Been kind of busy with other projects and stuff, but been listening to your broadcast.
Thank you for doing so.
And I have to say that I do have some issues, with your train of thought here, though.
Okay.
For one, you say there's this Earth is not a sphere, but it's a that we live on a flat plate, right?
Correct.
And we're covered with some kind of glass dome.
I wouldn't make that claim, but it certainly seems contained.
Okay. Would you say that this had to be? Was this made naturally?
No.
Was this made naturally, or did it come about?
No, it was created by an intelligence, or even thought of by an intelligence or a god. Comprehended, basically.
So you believe in a god, but you don't believe in the Bible God.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
The creator is goes without saying, and then from there, we have to take what we are given and then decide whether or not it seems true. And so I was given the Bible as a very young child and told we don't really believe, we don't read it word for word, was kind of what Catholics were told when I was raised Catholic. And then, but the stories are generally inspired by God, and most of them are true, and some are allegory. But we didn't read it as Catholics. What they do is they put you in pews and they read the same stories. If you know what Catholics do, you get a first reading, a second reading, and a gospel each week.
Sure.
But they're assigned. Not like anybody, the first reading on the second Thursday after, or second Sunday after Lent, is the same story every year. So they basically chose, let's say it's 100, which would be 52 weeks, 2 readings a week, something like that. So they chose 100 different little readings, but they never read you this part of the God demanding that you kill turtle doves, or that you killed things in front of them, or that, this right here, just talking about there's no, what I say there was no, I can't think of the name of it. There's no contradictions. So this says right here, talking about God prescribing all these sacrifices. He says, from it he shall offer an oblation to the Lord, a fatty membrane over the inner organs and all the fat that adheres to them, as well as the 2 kidneys, with the fat on them near the loins and the lobe of the liver, which he shall serve above the kidneys. All of this the priest shall burn on the altar as the food of the sweet-smelling oblation. All of the fat belongs to the Lord. This shall be a perpetual ordinance for your descendants wherever they shall be. You shall not partake of any fat or the blood. Now, people need to recognize what perpetual means. Look it up. And perpetual means forever, unchanging.
Right.
So you can't then say, oh, the New Testament comes and says, no, that is what a contradiction is. If God never changes, he can't write in the beginning of the book that something is perpetual and then change his mind down the road. Then it's not perpetual. So there's constant. I mean, there's thousands of contradictions in the Bible like that. I just read one earlier where Satan says to do something, and then the same story is told again, but God says to do it. That is a contradiction. Both of them couldn't have done it, so one of them did. So then it's a contradiction. So the book is filled with contradictions, and yet you have people going around saying there is no contradictions in the Bible. So that they're even lying for Christ. It's the same thing as the science cucks who lie for the globe, because they feel like as long as I'm going towards the truth at the end of the road, that it doesn't matter which way I get there. Christians are the same way. They will just make things up. They'll just invent things just because they feel like what they're doing is for the truth, and they don't even realize the damage that they're doing. But go ahead. I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No. I've been debating with atheists and Christians alike since about 10 years now on YouTube. So
debating an atheist is quite easy.
What's that?
So debating an atheist is quite easy.
Oh yeah. It's probably one of the easiest things to do.
Yes, I agree. I think that what baffles me is that Christians don't recognize that they have the same kind of unfalsifiable beliefs, right? So a science believer can tell you, but we know that the stars are 25 trillion miles away, and so it takes the light a certain distance. And we would easily be able to refute that by saying, how do you know how far the stars are? How do you know that? So if they just told you, well, I've got this holy book that says it, then you would recognize the problem with your own belief, which is if we ask you questions about God or Jesus, you're going to say, well, I have this book that tells me. So they have a book, a physics book, that tells them that stars are a certain distance, and they adhere to that book and tell you it's the truth, and we laugh at them. Ha ha ha, they think their book is the truth. And then Christians are like, let's go debate, and then they use their book as the truth. So to me, they're total hypocrites. You can't be okay with one and not the other. I mean, for me, I look at both of them and say both of them are flawed. You should be able to prove God and Jesus and the stories without needing to just default to, well, the book says so. Because again, we could do that with Stephen King's book, and then they said, well, what about the prophecies, Jaron? Well, Stephen King can write a book and in chapter 2 make prophetic statements that in chapter 8 come true, but we then cannot consider Stephen King to be God just because things later in his book came true that was predicted in the beginning of the book.
Sure. Like on Nostradamus and his predictions.
Right. I mean, but again, Nostradamus' predictions, people could read those and they'll recognize that they're ambiguous. They're just kind of bleh, and then people fill in the blanks and they're like, oh, that's what he was talking about. And I've seen that so much with the Bible too, where I'm asking people, give me a prophecy. They give it to me. Once you read it in context, you're like, no, that wasn't a prediction of the future. It was talking about then. I think if I would find it, it's either Isaiah, I believe, is the one where everyone refers to it as a prediction of Jesus to come, but it's not. He's talking about he would have a child, and I think he has the child in the next chapter. The one where they say his name will be Emmanuel, right? Is that Isaiah or no? Do you know?
I don't remember that scripture.
I don't remember that one. I don't remember if they told him that or not. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I'm not letting you talk very much.
But I mean, what you're saying is true. I mean, it's very confusing to a lot of people. But there again, you have to look at the bigger picture. You know, why did Jesus come to the earth? You know, why was he even born? You know, he's here to basically come in and undo what the devil did, or the Satan, or the evil one, as they call him. And the question is, you know, how do you get evil from this earth that's going to be, I mean, where is he right now? Where is Satan right now?
Well, where's Jesus right now?
Yeah, where is Jesus right now?
Right. So my deal is that we are in charge of the earth. We are in charge of making it like heaven on earth. We are in charge of getting rid of the evil and the wicked and calling out deception and deceit and fraud. But instead, we've been given a book that basically says you should be like Jesus. You should be passive. You should be let the government just come and do whatever they want to you, and then be hung on a tree and be like, oh, well, I'm going to heaven after. So everything in the Bible leads to the world being where we are today, which is a mess. You've got a bunch of, they used to be men. I don't even know what you'd call them now. They are not men anymore. They watch football. They watch men do other things. They watch porn. They watch sports. They watch other men play cards. They are not men because they are, and again, a lot of those people would consider themselves Christians. A lot of Christians will go and watch football on Sunday. A lot of Christians will, right. So because they feel that they are more holy than me, they then go and waste their lives away doing nothing for anybody, and they think that they're going to be rewarded. There's zero chance that you will be rewarded by the Creator simply for believing in his Son for coming 2,000 years ago. Zero chance. No, it's a mockery. It's a disgusting, it's an excuse for evil people to remain evil and lazy people to remain lazy. Imagine if I'd committed murders or rape, I would love to be a Christian, because there's a religion out there telling me that by simply believing in God and his Son, that all my sins are forgiven. It's an absolute joke that anybody would believe that. Why would you believe that the Creator of everything just cares about you believing that he sent his Son, and that's all that matters to God, the Creator? Like what? No, what would be more important, that you're a good person or you believe in his Son who you've never met? Obviously, it would be that you're a good person. But yet you've got Christians going around saying, this guy just thinks he's cool because he's a good person. This guy thinks he can just be a good person and get into heaven. Nope, you got to believe in Jesus like me and tell other people they're going to go to hell. And tell people that world peace is satanic. That's the kind of people we have running around promoting this book. It's disgusting. They are creating weak men. We need to stand up as a group of people and end garbage humans wherever they are. And yet we are, I just see people sitting back like, oh, well, this is what's going to happen. And Jesus will come any moment now. And how many times so like your family believed in Jesus, right? Your parents and your grandparents?
Yeah.
Right. Did they ever tell you that he would come in their lifetime?
No, I don't think they believed that.
Okay.
I would say,
maybe it's just me. My grandparents told me that he would, and so did my mom.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, I just have to realize, well, how far do we have to go back that everybody believed that, and that got them nowhere, right? So I've counted the.
Sure.
Let's say you do 30 years of a generation, which is about right. Right, your parents are probably about you're probably about 30 when you have kids. Your parents were about 30 when they had you. Again, plus or minus, could be 20, and you could be 40, but let's just say 30 is a good age for a generation. And it's been 2,000 years. And if we divide that by 30, we get, that's funny, it's 66.66666. But anyway, that was just completely by chance. But let's put in the right date so I don't have to go by that number. Let's go, it's 2023, and then we'll do that one. So at least it doesn't come out to that. 2023 divided by 30. All right, now we get a better number, 67.43. So it means 67.43 of your ancestors, your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa, many of them believed in Jesus. Maybe there was one or two who didn't, but let's say many of them, almost all of them. 67 times in a row, people have thought Jesus was going to come and save them, and so they let the world get weaker and eviler and more disgusting and more wicked. And why you would just step up and be like, I'm ready to be number 68. I want to be 68, that I believe in Jesus. He's going to come save us. And then you just die and the world gets worse. And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stand up and say, not with me. I'm not going to have it end on me, or I'm going to have it end on me. I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to teach my son to make the same mistakes his grandparents, his great grandparents, his father make the same mistake we all made. By her, let me just train my son to also believe Jesus is going to come save him, even though we can watch the world get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like, at what point do we recognize Jesus isn't coming to save us? And if he does come when we're out fighting them, great. Then we'll all welcome him. Jesus, thank God you're here. It's been 2,000 years. You're a little bit late. Look at the mess we've gotten ourselves into. You shouldn't have told us you'd be back quickly. Jesus said, many of you here will not die by the time the kingdom comes.
Sure.
Well, those people are all dead. But then Christians will make up some lie. They'll say, oh, he meant die the second death. Again, that's why you can't disprove it, because they can just say anything, which is why God wouldn't write a book, because anything can be changed to whatever you want it to be. For instance, there's that chapter Romans that talks about slavery, right? It tells slaves to love their slave owners, regardless of whether they're treated fairly or not. So the problem, and then the problem with that is you've got slaves saying we should be let free, we shouldn't be in shackles, and you've got slave owners saying no. It says here, the book says you should mind what I say, do what I say. You know?
Yeah, that's always the big hang up, is the slavery issue.
Well, and I get that. I mean, it should be a hang up because God would be the first one to tell you you cannot own another human. Period. So, but God doesn't say that. God gives you directions for selling your daughter into slavery. So he should be the first advocate to say you cannot own other people, period. Now, if somebody wants to, by their own fruition, come work for you, somebody shows up at my door, I need a job. Okay, we need somebody to do the lawn and clean the garage, and this person starts working for me. But he has to be free to leave. He has to be free to say, I don't want to work for you anymore, Jaron. Okay, you can go. If I subject that person to demanding that they stay against their will, if anybody sees that as anything other than absolutely disgusting, I don't know what's wrong with them, other than that they're probably a Christian and probably trying to, in their head, rationalize the slavery that's in it, in the Bible.
Well, the way I kind of argue the issue is that slavery is not a process of God. It's a process of mankind. Mankind started slavery, right? It was mankind that invoked slavery upon other humans in this earth. Okay. And the problem is that the people say, well, what about, the Bible says that God, denotes slavery. He gives directions on how to treat slaves. Mm-hmm. Well, the Bible says that God also honors the laws of man. So, right now, that if you went over to Saudi Arabia and denounced that you were gay, guess what would happen? You'd be stoned. Not the cool kind of stone. They would throw you off a 3-story building. We have that right now. That if you're gay, and if you say, "Yeah, I'm gay," and they take you off a 3-story building, and that's it. But let me tell you, one of the reasons that they're able to get away with that is because of the Bible. Because the Old Testament talks about gays and everything, but now the New Testament, Jesus says, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. So this is why all Catholics are becoming okay with with homosexuality, because they see it as something, well, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would hang out with the gays. So this is how they utilize this book constantly to craft the world that they want. Why? Because you can literally change any word to anything you want it to mean. You could do it with anything. You can take any verse. I mean, again, think about it this way. If I gave a 3-page book to 100 people and said, now I want you to summarize this in 2 sentences, every single person I gave it to would have a different 3-sentence summary. The reason for that is because you could take words off of a page and do anything you want with them in your head. So God would not be so dumb as to write a book and give it to 8 billion people and not realize you're going to have a problem. You're not going to have any. They always say, "Oh, God's not the God of confusion." Well, He certainly is. If He gave us a book and said, "Here, now you'll know me." What do you mean? The book needs interpretation. A lot of this doesn't make sense. A lot of this doesn't even happen in real life. We don't see people walk on water. Are you sure people can rise from the dead? Are you sure that donkey talked? And if we then have to kind of rationalize that, and there's 8 billion of us, you're going to have a problem. That's the problem. That's why I know that the book isn't from God. The book is a collection of writings from people claiming to have seen God. And whether or not people believe that at the time, or whether or not, I mean, again, I've told the story before, but imagine you're a king and you come along after another king and all the book is written about kings and their connection with God and they're talking to God. But let's say God didn't talk to you. You would have no choice but to make it up. You would have no choice but to tell a story where God came to you last night and He said this, this, and this. Because all these are God's coming to people in like dreams, and then they're telling the story. So who's verifying that? Just the people who wrote the book. How do we know God is the author, or is He inspired people if all it is people's individual, like it's some king saying, last night I had a dream and the seer came and told me this, this, and this, and God said do this, and then it's been written down and people just believe it. But today, if anybody came forward and said these things, everybody would laugh at them and shame them. If I came to you and said, God came to me in a dream last night and said this, this, and this, and I'm going to write it in a book, I'm going to pass it out to the world, you guys would all tell me, whoa, 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 don't do that. Stop. Right? But you believe a book that says the exact same things. These guys who just wandered the desert all spoke to God, but He doesn't speak to anybody today. Dean Odell told people that God came to him 3 days before 9/11 and told them that planes would be flying into buildings in New York 3 days before 9/11. And people still go to that guy's church. The guy should be laughed out of existence. God did not tell him shit. And if He did, well, God should probably tell somebody that can do a little bit more about it than Dean Odell.
Well, I've been a Christian for over about 40 years now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these issues, I had to deal with over the years. To me, it's like flat Earth. It's like the flat Earth theory. When you first hear it, you're just so overwhelmed by information. But what you need to do is kind of look at the bigger picture. Basically, Jesus is here to, to basically take evil from this earth. And once evil's out of this earth, take it away, we're going to see.
Okay, but hold on. Just think about the story you just told me. Now think, if you are evil, if you are disgusting and wicked and perverted, if you told that story, then people would go around thinking what you think, which is Jesus, but the evil's still here. He didn't get rid of the evil yet. So
Sure.
Wouldn't it be a great story to tell if you were wicked and evil? Isn't the Bible the best tool of the wicked and evil people in this world? I think it is. That's the problem. That's why I don't just look at it and be like, oh, well, and I used to think that. I used to think I was raised Christian. I believe I'm a better person because I was raised Christian.
Sure.
So that told me like, well, you shouldn't go after Christianity because you're a better person because you're Christian. Okay, great. But then you start to look at the world, and when you wake up to the world and the lies and the deception, you start to see that they use this book. So people will say like, why is Google's logo a 666? Why is CERN's logo a 666? Because those companies benefit when people believe the book. So why not? They pretend to be worshiping Satan. They pretend to be about that so that it draws people to the other side, and then people become complacent and meek, and they let people walk over them, and the world gets worse and worse and worse. And it's a brilliant scam. I tip my hat to the Jews as often as I can.
Well, you're talking about, the last days, and is this the generation of the last days?
But hold on that. Did your grandparents believe that? Because I believe
No.
They didn't believe it was the end times.
No. I never heard my grandmother say, growing up that, I think we're living in the last days. I think now I can say that.
Everybody believes it now, but and I guess I can only base that off of now and then like books I've read from 1600s, 1700s, where it seems to me people always thought it was the end.
Yeah. I mean, there was, you look at all the groups that, I mean, they off themselves.
Right.
I mean, they just totally, they sold their goods, they sold their house, they went out to a farm or whatever, and they woke up and said, "Well, today's the day," and it never happened.
No, and everybody who picks dates, right?
Right.
Oh, you guys want to hear my brilliant scam, my brilliant idea, my brilliant scam idea? Here we go. This is how we're going to confuse the Bible. It says no man knows the day or the hour of the end times, right? So what we do is we get all 8 billion people on Earth to all pick an hour and a day in the future, and we just line it up. And if you do the math on that, then it means that at least the world can't end for about 2 billion years, because we'll pick. I'll start with tomorrow. I'll guess tomorrow, 1/22/2023 at 12 a.m. I'm definitely wrong because no man knows the day or the hour. Then the next person picked 1/20 at 1 a.m. and we go through the whole group, and then we've given ourselves 2 billion years until the world can end.
Well, the only issue I have with that is that the Bible says we don't know the day nor the hour, right?
Right. So what if everybody on Earth picked a day?
No. Let me finish.
Oh, I thought you were okay.
That we don't know the day or the hour, but what about the month or year? Month or the year? The Bible doesn't say that, right?
Well, if you're going to pick a day, I would assume you'd know the month and the year.
Well, I mean, no, you can't. Even Jesus doesn't know when he's coming.
Right.
Only the Father. That's so scriptural.
Right. So if we don't know the day or the hour, we could all pick a day and an hour, and we would get the next 8 billion days and hours. Not days. You would get the next 8 billion hours from here till how far does 8 billion hours go? You take 8 billion divided by 24. That's 8 million billion divided by 24 equals. So we got 333 million days, and divide that by 365, and we'll get years. 913,000. Wait, did I do that right? We did 8 billion divided by 24, and we got that many days, and then we divided by, so it's 913,000 years. So we can keep the world around a while longer. I'm trying to find this. I want to read something that somebody wrote me, but I got to find it first. Is there nobody else is waiting? Let me check. Oh, I got a phone call. You can stay there. I'll be back with you if this call goes quick. We're going to go to this phone call. 562. You're on the air? Maybe not. 562.
Hello, Jared.
Uh-oh. Who's there?
This is God.
God, you're not very loud. I don't think people can hear you. You'd think God would have an amplifier.
This is God.
It sounds more like Satan.
Hello.
What do you
hear me? I'm so bad at these. Could you do a good sound check?
God, don't you have a good sound tech?
No, he's off today.
Okay. You have to fix that. Nobody can hear you. Can you guys hear God?
Can you hear me okay?
Can you guys hear God or no? Let me check the chat, see if they can hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh, no. Well, I'll work on this and come right back then.
Yeah, try that. We'll go back to...
Thank you, Jared.
Bye-bye, God. Okay. I knew that was going to happen at some point. I was like, people are going to start calling in, pretending they're Satan or pretending they're God.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen. Let me see here. I wanted to read this. Because I guess I become jaded with the amount of prophecies with people saying, remember the lineup in the sky was matched to Revelation 13, where there was the woman and she was giving birth to Jupiter and she had the sun in her hand and the moon at her feet. It was like identical to what Revelation says. Revelation is clearly an astrotheological, at least callback, or it's meant to show that, because there's no way that's by chance. There is in the stars the constellation Venus, and then there's Romans 13 that says, let me go there real quick so I can, not Romans 13, sorry. Revelation 13. And it gives exactly what's in the sky. And people all said, it only happens once every 5,000 years. And, I got caught up in some of those thinking that they meant something. And every time somebody picks a date, it just comes and rolls right by. Right. Right.
It
kind of seems like this is all a setup. And if they kind of keep playing into that,
And this is why, like, when they have that Satan commercial come out and they like show the meteors coming and crashing under, then people think, oh, this is the end. And then they kind of get teased up to it and then it doesn't happen. So, where does it say the beast? And then I saw a second beast. Where's the one of the lady in, oh, right here. So the dragons, oh, not that one. I saw a beast coming out. It had 10 horns. Maybe it's not 13. One of the heads of the beast. People worship the dragon because he gave authority. Allows people to conquer them. And it was, I thought there was the one that had the woman. I thought that was 13. Then I saw a beast that had 2 horns. Nope, not this one either. It's not Romans 13. I mean, Revelation 13. Where's the woman with the sun and moon? Let me find it here. Sun and moon, sun. Not there. And I thought I had a pretty good handle on some of the Bible books. I guess not. Let me try Revelation 12. 12 is the woman and the dragon. Okay, it's Revelation 12. So it's a great sign appeared in heaven, which again is telling you it's in the sky. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it may devour her child the moment he was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all nations with an iron scepter. And her child was snatched up by God and his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, that she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. But that's describing the stars.
Right.
Because you have that, and again, it supposedly only happens once every 5,000 years. I did a little research on that, and it actually happens all the time. But it's just a little thing I'm talking about. Like, they try and make things to seem like prophecy, but no prophecy ever comes to fruition. And here's the thing. I would say that God wouldn't even expect us to believe if prophecies came true. Let's say that in Revelation it said, on January 31st, 2023, a meteor will be hitting the earth and take out a half of the earth. Okay, whatever. That we would be smart enough to recognize that if a meteor hit the earth on that day, that we would all say, no, they made it happen. Right? That's, I mean, how would you know that they didn't? And so there would be no prophecy that we couldn't just say the elite made happen. They could just throw a rock from a plane at a certain speed, shoot it down, it hits the earth. Everyone's going to believe it's a meteor. Then they're going to think that Revelation was fulfilled. And so I would expect God to know that you can't use prophecies to prove divinity, because somebody could make the prophecy come true. Right?
Right. And that's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, in the last days, false prophets will arise, and that's going to happen. I mean, they're going to, in fact, they're going to produce miracles in the sky, which even the elect, some of the elect will be deceived. So what I'm saying to the Christians out there, you better know your scriptures, especially Revelation, because these things are going to happen. Look at Revelation 11:3. It's very specific on what it says. It says
11:3.
11:3. Revelation 11:3.
Mm-hmm.
Read that.
11:3 says, "And I will appoint my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, sacked and clothed in sackcloth."
Right.
That one.
Yep. So this is very specific. It's saying 3.5 years, these 2 people, these what they call the 2 witnesses, are going to prophesy for 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is going to happen during this time is, I think basically the wrath of God is going to come down, and they're going to produce. Well, they're going. They're saying that it's probably going to be Moses and Elijah are the 2 witnesses because of the things that they did in the past.
But so wait, so you believe that at some point in our lives, or in my child's life, that actual Moses and Isaiah will come back to life?
Yep. Well, I mean, that's Bible. I'm not the only one, Bible scholars.
No, I know that, but I'm saying to me, I'm never going to allow myself to believe in something that has never happened. It's just, will a virgin ever have a baby? No, never. Will a man walk on water? No, never. Unless he's got a plexiglass underneath it like Chris Angel. But other than that, no, you're not going to walk on water. So to think that people are going to come back from the dead, Moses and Elijah, and they're going to prophesy and they're going to do witnesses stuff, to me, it's just, even if it does happen, I think I'm in the right for saying that it won't happen. There's no way the people who say it will happen are in the right, and I'm wrong for saying, no, it won't. It's never happened before.
Right.
Because God wouldn't expect you to ever believe something that you can't prove to be true. I would think.
True.
Well, God wouldn't expect you to prove something or to believe in something that you've never seen, that every bit of evidence tells you cannot happen. For example, you have to believe that Mary gave birth to, as a virgin, to a child, right?
Sure.
Okay. So for God to demand that would mean God expects stupidity, because no person believes that any child can be born without sexual intercourse being the precursor. Unless you believe in a book just because the book says so. But again, to me, that's the test. Who would do that? God's not going to reward you for believing in nonsense. God can't reward people for having fairy tale beliefs. I wouldn't think.
I mean, that's why they call it a miracle. I mean, what are miracles for?
Okay, but would you be expected to believe in the miracle?
Sure.
Why? For your salvation, do you think? So you think it's a good thing for God to put people's salvation on the line and to dependent on whether or not they believe in something that they've never seen ever?
Sure.
Wow, really?
It comes by faith. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Again,
it's what men have told us is the word of God. Unless God has told you that is his word, that's my problem. He never told me that. And I was a great kid. Up to 16, I don't want to say perfect, but I was a great kid who cared about the church, who was there as an altar server, who would help set up in the mornings and fold the bulletins, and everything I did was about the church. And I could never feel anything or talk to Jesus or God. It was like, what is going on here? I would carry the cross into church and people would bow to me, and I would do the incense, and go to like a 3-hour Easter vigil match every Easter night, the night before Easter, or Easter midnight mass, 3-hour mass where, I mean, it was just, and the first half of the mass is in darkness where you're having to move people around with candles. It's this whole ordeal, but it's like, and at first I used to think, okay, maybe it's because Catholicism is the wrong religion. That's why, but I was still a good person. I was still doing all the right things. And the fact that God was nowhere to be found leaves you pretty jaded. Plus, none of the priests ever hit on me. So I was pretty upset about that too. Must have been an ugly kid.
Well, I had an aunt. I lived with the aunt for about a year in Santa Rosa. She was Episcopal. So she made me go to her church. Episcopal church is pretty similar to Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, actually, I don't know that. I said but I don't know that.
I went there for, let's see. Well, like I say, I was there for about a year. So I went to Episcopal church. And, like most churches, you're going to find the hypocrites and you're going to find the true believers.
Right.
I find this, even in Episcopal church, that was true. I've been to Assembly of God. I've been Southern Baptist.
So you're saying it's true across the board, right?
I've been to Baptist. I've been to Nazarene. I've been, across the board, you're going to find hypocrites.
I agree.
And no matter what happens, you're going to run into them.
Right.
But what I hope you don't do is not fall in the trap of being misled, by what they say, or by even what they will show you in scriptures. So you have to be careful. Just like the flat Earth thing, we have to do our own research. We have to do our own studies.
Correct.
You just can't take it for a grain of, just
but
say, hey.
Do you think that do you have a right to choose who you worship and who you don't?
Yes.
Okay. So it would be an interesting test, in my opinion, to put a character in a book that has no reason to be worshipped at all. The Old Testament God is not worthy of worship in any way. Read the Old Testament, at least try and read it, not from the perspective of this is God talking to me. Read it from a perspective of, is this God? and read the Old Testament, and you'll quickly discover that God does not deserve any worship. It's why Jesus came and changed everything. It's why we don't hear from God anymore. It's because they realized, oh shit, that God's not very cool. Let's get Jesus and have him be a cool, nice guy God rather than this tyrant. Because I think the test is whether or not you pay homage or worship to an unworshipable character. And if I was God, that'd be a great test. Because if people are worshiping that character, I mean, to me, again, I think God has killed nobody. You think God has killed millions. So why do you think?
What about the flood?
So I don't think that God caused the flood. I mean, just the book says that.
Well, I mean,
but see, here's the difference:
you don't believe in the flood. You don't believe
no, I believe there was a worldwide flood, and I believe that they said God did it, but that doesn't mean God did. Right? The world could have flooded. So what I'm saying is, we are taking the words of men who are claiming God did things, and we're calling it fact. Right? So you think God killed many, many people. To me, I would never accuse God of killing anybody unless I had evidence, and I don't mean by evidence because somebody wrote it in a book. Somebody could write in a book that I killed a bunch of people. If you believe that, that would be dumb because it's only in a book. So a book is written that says God killed a bunch of people, which is dumb because it's only in a book. Yet people are like, nope, this book we believe. So to me, I think we're setting ourselves up for deception. And I talk about it in a way of, if you were actually trying to make a proving ground for people to either excel or to show their true colors, the people you would reward most are the ones who did things without the knowledge of a reward and without fear of hell. Because if somebody loves God because they're afraid of hell, that's not really loving God. Just like if a wife loves her husband because she's afraid he'll beat her if she leaves, that's not loving her husband.
I agree.
Okay. So it's the same thing. Christians are all afraid of God. It's why they don't allow anything from outside the Bible. It's why they're afraid of hell. It's because they truly fear God. But that's not love. If you fear God, you don't love him very much.
Well, fear is an emotion. It's brought on by, let's say tomorrow you get invited to the White House.
Okay.
Are you gonna just lackadaisical, okay, I guess what, we're going to the White House, let's wear some shorts and some sneakers, and we'll just trance in there and say hello to Biden, and we're out of there. I mean, it's you got to look at, you're being invited to meeting the most powerful, the most intelligent entity that's ever lived.
Yeah, but it's the creator. It should be exciting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you're excited that you're going to meet Biden.
But if people
you're excited you're going to the White House.
But people but people tremble over the Lord. Well, people whip themselves with ropes, and they walk on their knees for miles and miles because they are like really frightened by this creator.
Right. And the way I want to look at this is, people say, well, it's a matter of, good things or bad things. If the good things outweigh the bad things at the end of my life, then yeah, I get to go to heaven. Oh, that's not true.
What's not true?
Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For by grace we are saved through faith, that not of ourselves, but it's a gift of God, not a result of works, lest any man should boast." So, heaven's not, you can't earn heaven. There's nothing else we can do to earn heaven. If that's true, then why did Jesus even die on the cross?
Again, men told me Jesus died on the cross.
Okay.
So I just have a hard time believing anything that people have written in a book that I can't verify at all. And we know that because we believe that about science. If somebody tells us they know the distance to the stars, you're going to say, how do you know that? They're going to say, well, some guys wrote it in a book, and you're going to laugh at them.
Sure.
So why not do that the same for your own belief about the creator? Why is it okay for things to be written in a book in one sense, but not in another? And
it's your attitude towards God. I mean, you look at when Jesus died on the cross, he had two men on each side of him, two criminals on each side of him, right? One was mocking them, And the other one said, don't you realize that this is the Son of God?
Right.
And and I tell people, I say, well, that proves we don't have to even be baptized to get saved. The
Right.
criminal died on the cross. He said, remember me when you enter into your heaven, Jesus. He said, truly, truly, I say to you, I will see you in heaven. So, it's a matter of, here's the criminal. He didn't have time to go to Sunday school. He had time to read the Bible. He didn't have time to even pray. He had time to die. Even then, the only thing he had to do was believe in what Jesus was, and that he was the Son of God, that he died on the cross, and that's all it took.
Right.
And isn't that great? I mean,
no, because what it does is
it's not great.
So you're telling me
to heaven because
what about
anything we can do?
What about a pedophile? A pedophile, all they need to do, they've raped children.
They're not going to make it.
Why? What if the
evil ones? I mean, that's
no. But what if they believe in Jesus in their last day? They come to the realization, yes, Jesus is real, God is real. I believe now in Jesus. He's the Son of God. That person's going to go to heaven over me, who has not done anything wrong but questions God, doesn't believe in Jesus. That's a hilarious joke to me. It's like, if that is the case, then I would prefer not to go to heaven. If that's who God's rewarding, the people who at the last minute are like, oh yeah, I do believe in your Son. And those people get rewarded while people who spent their life trying to bring people to the Creator, trying to wake people up to the deceptions, trying to point out lies, and that person goes to hell, that's hilarious to me. It cannot be true. It just cannot be true. And yet people will go around telling me it is true. It is fact. And I better believe in Jesus or I'm going to burn in hell. It's like, that's hilarious. Why would they ever believe that a God would? I mean, this is why I know it's the test. It is the test. The test is, are you going to fall for that line of thinking?
No, it's not a test. It's a matter of character. It's a matter of who you are.
Right. So to really, truly dig into who somebody is, right? So, for example, if I really wanted to, let's say I create 10 little beings on my desk here. I create them, but I want to know which one of these 10 is the best person inside. The first thing you would not do is you would not threaten them with hellfire, because then all 10 of them are going to be scared of you, and anything that they do is simply because they're afraid of you, not because they're really good people. So that's number one thing you wouldn't do. Number two thing, you wouldn't say, all you have to do is believe in my Son that I'm going to send, and you're forgiven for all your sins, because then all of them can be like, fuck it, let's just be sinners. What difference does it make? It's why I think priests are raping little boys, is because they believe we're all born in sin. They believe we all are sinful by nature, and they believe that all they have to do is believe in Jesus, and they go to heaven. So they fuck up sometimes. Oops, I touched little Jerry a couple times too many, but they feel like they love Jesus and that Jesus will forgive them and put them into heaven. That cannot be true. It cannot be true.
Right. I agree with that.
Right. So then if that's the case, then what you would do.
Character.
Right. It's a matter of character, right? So God's going to look at those 10 beings he created, and he's going to have some sort of character test. How do I find out who's really good? It's life is you're not given the answers. So you're not given you don't know what happens after you died. So you have to be a good person just because. You have to be good because it's inside you, because you have that feeling, that morals that God gave you. And you have to discern which path to take, which to believe and which not to believe. Now, if those 10 people, if somebody down there gives them a book and says that their creator, me, wrote it, the number one way for them to start to determine if that's true would be to go through the book and see if it matches their idea of the creator. If it doesn't, they should throw the book away. If it does, they can say, this book is pretty good. We think it does have something to do with the creator, or that the creator would be something like this, but you could never say this book is written by the creator, especially if it had things in it that proved that I wasn't a very moral person. So my thing is, that book's been put here. I'm not saying God necessarily did it, because I don't believe in God like interjecting in our lives, not like, that. But once the book's been put here and people start reading it, then that is the test, is whether or not, if you believe in that God and you act according to what that book says, and the God that's in that book is not matching your morals that were given to you by God, that's your clue to get out. That's your clue to realize that's not the correct belief. And here's another thing. Every single nation in the world
believes in God or some form of it, or did, maybe not now, but we just need to recognize that they're all talking about the same God. So if my 10 people that I created on my desk went off into individual little areas of my desk and had families and cities and communities, then each community would grow with a different opinion of me. They would recognize that there's a connection with the Creator, and they would come up with whatever version they had. But they would hopefully be smart enough that if they met each other later down the road, that we don't war with each other over our different opinions of God. That's dumb. We all have the same. So these people all believe that God like has a favorite group of people. He gave a book to a certain group, but not to another group. The reason they believe that is because they are selfish. They don't want to admit, oh, we just all believe in the same God, but we describe him differently. So Allah is God, is Jehovah, is YHWH, they're all the same. The rain god from the Native Americans, the Indians gods, and all the Tanesh and all these, Zoroastrianism. I mean, every god is the same. It's all people's connection with the Creator. And here's how I know that's to be the case. Rob Skiba sat across from me and says, well, Jaron, here's how I know the Bible's real. And he goes through a story. He's driving in the forest or something, and the wind blows, and he's feeling terrible. And he's like, God, I just need an answer. And the wind blows through, blows the Bible open. He looks down and sees one line that says, I'll be there for you, something, 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 right? That's his belief in God. Okay, I get that. It's a very personal story, but I get it. Then down the road, I hear somebody tell me, and this didn't happen until I got on YouTube and started talking to people from other faiths, other nations. And they'd say to me, Jaron, it's actually, the Quran is correct. Let me explain why. I was doing this, this, and this, and the Quran fell from a top shelf of my bookshelf, and it landed on a certain page. And when I looked at it, it said this, this, and this, and I knew he was real. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see what's going on here. Then somebody else tells the same story. Then Rob Skiba says, I also know it's true because I saw a demon. A demon came into my room, and he held my friend down, did this whole story. Well, I hear Muslims tell me that they believe in God because they've seen the jinn. So you start to realize that humans are very capable of basically anything. Conjuring up demons, conjuring up wicked things. I always told people, I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in Satan. However, if I went out in my garage and painted a pentagram on the ground and lit some candles and read the Bible backwards, I don't doubt that Satan would come. But that's because I'm inviting that into my life. If you don't believe in Satan, he can't exist. If you don't believe in demons, they can't exist. So the problem with this world is a bunch of people running around believing in demons, believing in Satan, and the world ends up being exactly what we manifest it to be. So we shouldn't be surprised.
Well, as far as religious leaders, you talk about Islam,
right?
Muhammad.
Yeah, he's garbage human. Sorry, peace be upon him.
Muhammad, born August 12th, 1844. He died June 22nd, 1885. Mormon, Joseph Smith, born December 23rd, 1805, died June 27th, 1844.
Right. Wait, he died at 42 years old?
Let's see, 40. Yeah, he died pretty young, looks like.
What the hell? I never remember hearing that. Why would it?
Yeah, Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, born 536 CE or before Christ.
Right.
Died 632 before Christ. So, of all these religions, which ones would you rather be with? Jesus died when?
33.
And people say he arose, or people saw him, up to 500 people saw him.
But again, people say that people saw him. We don't get to speak to anybody who saw him. So I'm just trying to point out to people that they always say to me, the Bible says, or God says, or Jesus says, and I'm just reminding them, you've never heard Jesus say anything. You've never heard God say anything, and you've never heard the Bible say anything, because everything is written after the fact. Like the oldest manuscripts, even for the Old Testament, are like 11th and 12th century. They're not, but they're copies of copies of copies. I get it. I always say that, and people are like, you liar, it was written in 100 AD. Yeah, I get when they say it was written, but why do not people get this when it comes to religion, but they get it when it comes to science? I'll never understand. It's like if I'm telling people that the books that we have from Epicurus or from Aristophanes
that those are just copies of copies of copies. We don't have the originals. They get it. But when I say that about the Bible, they lose their mind. It's like, it's the same thing. We don't have books from 2,000 years ago. I don't even think that we've been here 2,000 years. By the way, was you talking about the pyramids? Did you know there's like these statues in Egypt that are like meticulously crafted with, like, you could see the ribs of the lion through the actual stone structure. They actually were able to make the perfect aligned ribs. And then there's like some chicken scratch hieroglyphics on the outside. And we actually date everything by the writing. But the writing isn't at all from that era. The writing is clearly been added way after. So clearly we had way more technology back then. The pyramids were built. Now they want us to believe a certain age time period, so they put chicken scratch hieroglyphics on it and then lied to us about it. As if that's not surprising. So I wanted to read this to you if I could find it. This is the kind of thing that just upsets me, is when people like this, and the Christians do this a lot, and then they don't ever, I don't know, apologize, I guess is what I want to say. So let me see here. Find it here.
Well, you heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
I have, yes.
Now they looked at the Dead Sea Scrolls. They looked at the Old Testament portions of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they compared it to modern translations. They said it was remarkable how well preserved, or how well it translated over. That none of it basically was changed over thousands of years. And that's one thing that I say to people. Say, well, look at all the translation. I say, well, go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were hidden in caves for thousands of years, and they were dug up. People compared them, or biblical scholars compared them to what we have now. It's amazing how well they kept up.
Okay, so they're all tiny little pieces. You realize that it's not like scrolls.
No, they had full, complete texts of full books of the Bible. They had full.
In the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, it wasn't just bits, little pieces of, papyrus leaves. They had full books. That they looked at and said, "Hey, these
I don't think that's the case.
Well,
I'll look up. I'll check it out.
Yeah, check it out. I think you'll find that. The Jewish people, that's one thing, is they kept the word of God, and it was amazing how well preserved those translations were over thousands of years.
So do you see this picture here? Oh, let me bring up a larger picture, actually. I'm just looking up Dead Sea Scrolls, and the first thing I see is all these little fragments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are, what? So how, a big deal if this matches a letter J and an A or something. Look at this.
Yeah, but that's little fragments. I'm talking about full. There you go. Look at the one on top there. I mean, that's not a fragment. That's a whole. What is that? What Bible is it? What chapter is that?
I don't have any idea what that says. Let me see.
But yeah. So yeah, do a little research on that. I think it'll open up your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, when I started looking into the Sea Scrolls, it said above the Psalms 11Q, one of the 981 texts from the Dead Sea Scrolls, with a partial Hebrew transcription. What? The Old Testament includes fragments from every book except Esther, and multiple copies of many books, 36 copies of Psalms, 29 of Deuteronomy. So the Dead Sea Scrolls consisted of 36 copies of the same book?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The Bible. Yeah.
What? No, the same book of the Bible. It says Psalms.
Well, yeah, I mean,
the first Sea Scrolls were discovered in Bedouin in a cave just east. Now you do know that when they can't date Sea Scrolls, they can't date any writing. They have to base it off of the writing style and then say, oh, it matches. So it could be faked. I'm just saying again that
could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Again, it's not. I can't say that they are. I wouldn't know that, but there were the ones that, if you look up Dead Sea Scrolls fraud, there's all the ones that went to the museum in DC right here. So all the Museum of the Bible's Dead Sea Scrolls are a fake, report finds.
New findings raises questions. This is just in 2020 about the authenticity of the collection of texts known as the 2002 scrolls. In 2009, Hobby Lobby president Steve Green began acquiring a collection of 16 Dead Sea Scrolls for his museum, a sprawling institution in Washington, D.C. that seeks to provide an immersive and personalized experience. The museum opened in 2017, and not long after, doubts began to swirl about the authenticity of its Dead Sea Scrolls. 5 were confirmed to be fake, and now reports Michael Greshko of National Geographic, a study commissioned by the museum, reached an even more damning conclusion that none of the textual fragments in the Museum of the Bible's Dead Sea Scrolls are authentic. So I've heard people say that it does bring into question all of them. Now, I know that doesn't mean just because you found some that are fake, all of them are fake, but it's so confusing to me of what to believe. You would love to believe that people who are believers are truth tellers, but then I hear stories about that, like Ron Wyatt. You know him?
No.
So, do you believe that they found the ark of the Noah's Ark?
Noah's Ark? I've heard different. I've been following that for years.
Right. That's that Ron Wyatt who said he found it.
In fact, I went back to. I remember seeing a story on. They found some pieces of wood in blocks of ice on Mount Ararat, and they analyzed it, and they said, "Well, yeah, it's got to be Noah's Ark." But.
Did I lose my? Yep, lost my calls. All right, called over. Where were we? So I want to bring up some. Whoops, where is that paper just at? Oh, I just want to bring up some because I don't want people to get confused. So according to this paper, it says the report does not cast doubt upon the authenticity of the Dead Sea Scrolls held by the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Just so that people don't think I was saying that it does.
Yeah,
these artifacts are among the most precious.
That's important to know that.
Yes,
they don't doubt. The original scrolls.
But yeah, I would love to see how many of those there are, and what did they consist of gigantic pieces? Because again, there might be books that it matches, right? What the hell time is it? Oh, 6. Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient, mostly Hebrew manuscripts of leather, papyrus, and copper, first found 1947. Discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls is among the most important finds in the history of modern archaeology. Study of the scrolls has enabled scholars to push back the date of a stabilized Hebrew Bible to no later than 70 CE, to help reconstruct the history of Palestine from the 4th century to 135 CE. What? Oh, BCE to 135, and to cast new light on the emergence of Christianity and a rabbinic Judaism, and on the relationship between early Christian and Jewish religious traditions. See, that to me seems like deception. It seems like, again, this is what they do in science. They go back and then they tell a story from a certain date, and then there's copies of copies of copies of copies. So it just seems like they always could do that. And I don't think anybody should look at me funny for thinking that. After the world we've lived in and the lies we've been told, why would I ever, just like I always say to people with science, I say, if we were lied to about everything, why would you believe in the place you can't go and the things you can't go measure, like space? Well, the same is true about the Bible. Why would you believe in a book that you can't verify? Period. You can't verify it. Now, you can pretend that you can. You can say, oh, but the sea scrolls match it. Okay, but they could be faked. You can't. There's nothing that tells you the sea scrolls are from when they say, other than those guys.
Sure.
So, again, I don't think God would ever put anything dependent on our whatever you want to call it. You can call it our justice, or make my eternity, is going to be caused by my belief or non-belief in things I can't verify. So the Bible to say prove all things when it itself cannot be proven, it makes no sense to me. It seems like the words of men, not the words of a God. God would not make mistakes like that. He would not say prove all things and then give you a book that literally cannot be proven. But that you just self-refuted yourself. Now again, I see those as signs of something else. Signs of the truth and of kind of, we always say the elite has to do things. They have to. So if the Bible itself says prove all things and cannot be proven, then to me, I just look at the elite like, crafty ones, guys, because they basically told you the truth in their deception. And then it's on you if you believe their deception.
Sure. Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I said I was going to keep it to 2 hours. We went 3 and, that's okay. I didn't do it last week, so we'll do it again next week.
All right. It was it was great.
Thanks, David.
It's great to talk to you, Jared.
You too.
Jared. And I hope to see you soon.
Take it easy.
Bye.
All right, let's head out. And let me teach you one thing too. If you guys want tips for your show, do not do a anti-religious show. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you. Let me get over here. But unfortunately for me, I just got to do what my heart tells me. And I think that there's enough people that are awake enough to it. And I'm not going to do this every week and then just be, oh, let me read you this thing real quick because I said I was going to. And I have it. I found it. Let me bring up the thumbnail. Where is it? Weird. Okay, where did this go? There we go, fixed it. All right, I'm going to read you this. And you tell me what you think. Okay. And what you would think if this happened to you. Because, I mean, again, it's just very upsetting. All right. Wait, let me see if this is the right one. I want to make sure. Maybe it's before this. Hold on 1 second. I don't see the actual part I was going to read you. Okay. Well, now I'm not finding it, but oh, maybe this is it. Yes. No. Man, she wrote me a lot more than I thought. I just saw my response to her. Really rude. I basically said, nope, that's not happening. None of that. Way to go. Okay, here we go. This is from somebody on Facebook, somebody I've known for years, 5-6 years. And out of nowhere, they wrote this to me. Tell me how you would feel. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm going back in time. I keep seeing more conversation and not the actual original one. Okay, yeah, this is it. All right, so she wrote me and said this. Hey, I just wanted you to see this. I'm not sure what your belief is in Jesus Christ, but I really wanted to reach out to you because you're a new dad. This is blankety, 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 blank, blank, blank. I was thinking about all of the amazing people that brought all the truth together, but some of them didn't have the one truth that is the most important one. That is the truth about Jesus Christ. Jaron, next Wednesday, the Christians are going to be raptured off of the earth. Believe it or not, I figured out where they were going. Remember that I have a keen eye for these things. I wanted to show you a picture. Well, 2 pictures. The first one, the one that NASA put saying that there was a door on Mars. The second one was taken off of their website where I read that they were saying that there was a lot of solar activity on the sun. So, of course, I had to go have a look. What I saw shook me to my very core. You can clearly see that there is a door on the sun, and that is where Jesus Christ lives that's about to happen next Wednesday. Jaron, if you ever have trusted one simple thing that I have ever said, if you ever saw the sincerity, if you ever heard the sincerity in my voice, please listen to me now. Jesus is real. And once that trumpet sounds on Wednesday, and you will hear it, it will be far too late for you to accept him. He's known you since before you were even conceived. It really is like a matrix. He knows what you're going to say next Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. I promise you that. I developed these skills that are in relation to being able to prophecy. You see, if you don't do it, your beautiful little son Maverick is going to be taken into heaven, and you will have to stay here, and it's going to rip your heart out. I can't bear the thought of that for you. Wouldn't you rather just try and feel Jesus living inside your heart? Think of your little son. He's going to be gone for 3.5 years, and then the kingdom will come, down to earth, and you will be judged at the white throne. Don't let this happen, Jaron. You're such a nice person. You're so nice, so smart. You know that there's a creator. You know the earth is flat. Why can't you just read the Bible? The whole truth is in there. I promise you. If you were to open to Hebrews chapter 10, verse 32, it was written just for me. I know that's hard to believe right now, but it was. Wow. Wowzers. So my response was, I know the Bible has been changed and isn't God's word. Now I can't say that about the entire thing, but I know for sure Romans 13. Well, the fact remains is God created his son to die on the cross for his bride and for the sins of man. I just been thinking a lot about the truth community and what you all mean to me, how we are collectively came together to reveal the important fact of where we live. I'm just telling you right now, on Wednesday next week, all the signs are in the sky that the rapture will happen. That means that the bride of Christ, who is an actual real living person, will be taken up to heaven to marry Jesus. They will come down together to bring up all the children ages 5 and under, and then the chosen people. Immediately after that, there will be a fake alien invasion. They'll probably just use holographs or images, and then total anarchy. People will die of fear. The Antichrist is going to come into the world. It's going to be 3.5 years of the worst apocalypse history has ever seen. This is where you will have to get the digital ID under your skin to be able to buy or sell anything. You'll also be forced to accept this thing as your God, or you'll be persecuted. Most of the people in the world will die. I just felt in my heart to tell you this. Jesus Christ is a real living God. I've seen such miracles that there is no other explanation. I mean, that alone is such a crazy person statement. Supernatural things, far beyond what can be explained away by anything else. It's your decision, but I do walk with the Lord. Jesus, he is the love of my life. This is really going to happen. So listen real quick. This lady has never met Jesus. She believes all this. So should I be surprised that people wrote in the Bible basically like what she's saying? She's talking as if she knows this person. He is coming. He is the Savior. He's here to save you. I've seen him. If you believed anything I've ever said, you would believe this. Would this lady die for Jesus Christ? Yes. She's never met him. So does it prove that Jesus Christ is really God? No. Just because this lady will say crazy things doesn't mean I have to believe in him. Jesus is the love of my life. That is really going to happen. I've heard overhead, because I live in Florida, very heavy, loud planes. I know it's Chinese inside. They're not regular, normal people. They're on their way to outpost areas in the Caribbean. They are going to attack the United States with Russia. It's going to be the worst thing that ever's happened. This is going to sound really crazy, but if you find yourself in that situation, please come to my house. It's too long a story to explain to you, but God has promised the remnants of protection. He has shown me that my property is one of them. Listen, if none of this happens, you can just write it off, call me crazy. Crazy tinfoil hat wearing Christian. Here's my address. I have prepared my home for the arrival of people. I have war gamed it. People will survive if they come here. That's all I can tell you. Thank you for being such a great mind in the community. I just wish that you would accept Jesus Christ. If all this happens, please reach out to the others that are left behind and give them the address. God be with you. In case you didn't realize, the cliffhanger did not happen. Okay. I did say after that date came and went, I just said, hey, I'm not trying to rub it in, but can you think twice before telling people that Jesus would be here to steal their kid? There is no end of the world coming. Please stop falling for traps. And then they go off on me again. I'm not trying to hurt you. I was trying to help you, but God has revealed something so powerful to me, and it's about you. Very soon, you'll see. I hope you keep my address. I know you don't believe me right now, my dear Jaron, but I want to tell you that I love you. You are going to be a brother in Christ very soon, and if my prophecy comes true, please know. Oh, this is before it didn't come true. I guess I just said that to her before the date. And if the prophecy comes true, please know that everything is going to be okay. Your little boy Maverick is instrumental. If you look up gematria, what Maverick moment means, it means the Great Awakening. So when it happens on July 5th, that's when they're cracking CERN wide open. Don't be afraid. Just get here as soon as you can. I know you think I'm crazy, and I don't care. Make sure you tell the others when it happens. Bring whatever you can. I have food here for 6 months, but it's nothing fancy. You truly are sealed by the blood of Jesus because you gave your heart to him when you were a little boy. Even though you've had a falling away, you are still protected. You are going to help lead the world's largest awakening in truth and scripture, and I promise you all of your questions are going to be answered. The things you don't understand about the Bible, the things that you have kept from believing in Jesus Christ, they will all be revealed to you. Please don't be angry at me right now. I say this with the greatest love you can't even imagine. I know you have a tender heart. I hear it in your voice. I heard what you said on the program. Peace be still with my friend. Very soon we will see each other. I was voice typing, didn't mean to call you Sharon. Oh, I know it's Sharon.
And I said, and what will happen if nothing is changed on July 7th? Are you going to change the date again? She said, it's July 5th. They're cracking up CERN. You know that. I said, yes, but nothing will happen. That's why I said July 7th. But anyway, she says, well, at least you will know the truth if it does. And you will need to get the heck out of California really quick. Listen, I know I sound crazy. I get it. But if I were to explain to you what I've been through since January 30th, maybe you would believe me then. Maybe one day I'll be able to tell you all about it. Just know that there is no malice. I really like you. I think you have a heart of a lion. You have tremendous bravery. You're very kind. I listened to your podcast. You were respectful, even though you didn't like what I told you. You didn't call me some crackpot, and I still don't. And you didn't give me anybody by my name. I don't know if you remember. Okay, I can't read that part, but I said, yes, but my whole life has been filled with nothing but Christian predicting dates, making claims about Jesus' return, and people like you who even promise me. If I ever listened to just one thing, to listen to just one conviction in your words, you were so sure, and nothing happened yet again. I've come to realize that the elite play with your mind. No second coming, not now, not ever. You've fallen for a hoax. And I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly because God would not tease you. Oh, I'll be back soon to save the world from evil. Soon? What's soon? It's been 2,000 years. You say it to a Christian, they're like, oh, but God and Jesus operate in different times. Oh, it's a good thing to give us the warning then in their time frame. That makes sense. It's the leaps and hoops and fiery hoops you have to jump through to believe in this stuff and to keep pushing it on other people. That's the worst thing. Those are the people that are going to be getting it the worst. If you're somebody who pushes this on other people, you are in for a terrible treat because there's no way you will be celebrated. There's no way you will get high fives from God for teaching people to be meek, for telling people to sit around and don't save up things for the future. The reason the evil is taking over is because you don't save up for the future. Okay? Because you do nothing but make enough money to get by. Now you're going to die and you're going to leave nothing to your children who are going to have the same, if not harder, problems dealing with the elite. Okay? Whereas if we actually did what the elite do, which is put a little money away, store, then you could in one generation take care of your family for all generations. Do you realize that? If I had $500 million today, my family till the end of time would be taken care of. They would be able to grow, to gain more value, to gain more property, to be, that would be easy. But that'll never happen because we've all been lied to while the elite and the wicked run the world. So again, if you think that the meek will inherit the earth, good luck. If you think that Jesus is going to come back and he's going to kill all his enemies after he told you to love his enemies, good luck, although that's being a hypocrite. So again, that's how I feel. All right, I'm out of here. Let's see if there's anything else here. And nobody wrote to me. Nobody. Oh, there's one. Play Magic Square of the Sun. Robert Seffer goes for 10 minutes on YouTube to wake people up. Play Magic Square of the Sun? Don't know what that is, but I'll look it up. Jesus is real change. Get out of the fish story. Words are vibrations. That's where the life and death of the power of the tongue, not the blood of the cross. That's a good point. Or get it ripped out, Jaron? What? Do it or your heart gets ripped out, Jaron. Now. Do what? These people are psychopaths. See what I'm saying? Is this person talking to me like because I don't believe in his belief that... Just remember this one thing. There is no screw up in the divine plan, whatever that may be. It's up to us to make a conscious choice to defend that and each other. Okay, that's not bad. Hopefully that's... I don't know where you went from that to ripping my heart out. Numbers are the lie that told the truth. What? Yeah, effed up world. I don't know why you sent that to me, Enoch, which isn't even considered scripture, right? Basic math, numbers don't lie, or do they? Is this person talking to me? Numbers are the lie that told the truth. Where did he get to taking my heart out? Okay, here. Just remember this one thing. There is no screw up in the divine plan. Say, it just baffles me for somebody to make that statement. How do you make that statement? There is no, it's like, according to who? You've just made up the rules that there is no screw up in the divine plan? Whatever that may be, it is up to us to make a conscious choice to defend that and each other. Jaron, if you don't believe in religion, how do you know if God is good or evil? Because everything that is about good. You wouldn't have life if good isn't the correct direction. If you just had, if God was evil, nothing would be here. Everything would be destroyed. Think about it. All the words that are light, nurturing, justice, creation, all these loving things are about good. And that's what we should be promoting, the good, right? You wouldn't have, if mothers weren't nurturing, we wouldn't have lives. If mothers just gave birth and threw the baby over in the bush, like, somebody will get it, none of us would be alive. So the good is the promotion of that. The negative, the bad, the dark is the opposite. If instead of nurturing, you just dismiss, instead of creating, you destroy. And so clearly, that's how I know that good is the right way. And it's not, if you don't believe in religion. Well, I could believe in a religion if there was a good religion. It's not that I don't believe in religion. If somebody came up and said, here's what I think, and then they kind of laid it out like I've kind of laid out what I think, I would say, hey, like I did believe in deism for a while, because deism says that God doesn't interject in life, which is what I see, right? There's no way that God saves some children who run out in front of cars, but not others, right? There's no way that by praying for your grandmother to live through her heart surgery, that God is actually making that happen. That just is not at all realistic. Because then what about people who died who were prayed for them to be saved? Why wouldn't God save that person? So God does not answer prayers like that, nor does he interject in life and stop a thing from falling on you. But what God does do is operate through us, meaning this is why there's stories of women lifting up cars to save their children. Why? Because that woman is God. Okay? The woman is God. That she's a piece of God just like you are, just like I am. We all are equal pieces of God. So we all have the divine in us, and we can actually do divine things we've been lied to about. We've been told we cannot do that. What is the biggest thing they tell us? You can't pretend to be God. You can't act like God. You can't think you're God. Well, they tell you that because you can. Okay, it's pretty simple. We can bring our collective God. Two people put their God energy together and create another human being. Okay, so clearly there is power in us beyond our comprehension. And we've been lied to about it. And it's probably been taken out due to vaccines and processed foods and indoctrination and Sesame Street and science, these things. Okay. So that was weird. Thought that my camera froze. What they've done is they've stolen our connection with the Creator. However, the Creator has made sure that that connection is always there. If you wonder why they go so hard against flat Earth, these atheists, it's because they have a connection with God. Do you understand? They have a connection with God and they severed it. They got so jaded by, again, Christians. I get it. There's a bunch of people telling you you're going to burn in hell if you don't believe in their God. So I could see becoming completely jaded with it and saying, fuck religion. I'm going to go look for something else. And I did that. And what was waving their hands at me? Science. Jaron, come over here. Jaron, we believe in only truth. We're unbiased men who look for facts and evidence. And I was so pissed at religion that I went over there and I'm like, this has got to be it. What an idiot I am. I should have believed this the whole time. Why am I so dumb? These guys actually believe in evidence and they're not biased. And so then I became an atheist. And real quick, if you have half a brain, you realize you're in another religion. Now, many people, I think, are lazy. And so they got tired of all the searching they did through religion, and they went to science and said, science, I believe it, I'm done. Science is it, I'm done. I don't want anything else. That's who we're dealing with. People who are too lazy to do any research, because if they did any research, they would realize we don't know the age of the Earth. Oh, well, we have a machine that we made that tells us, great. And doesn't the Earth would have to be the same all the way back for us to actually come up with half-lives and things like this? Oh, yeah, that sounds like an accurate. Then you go look at the strata lines and there's like trees growing up in the strata lines. How did the tree encompass millions of years? So you realize real quickly, it's a story. Now, here's the problem. A lot of science is meant to refute the Bible. So you're like, oh, well, then the Bible must be true. Why else would they be trying to refute it, right? But then you have to think to yourself, well, wait a second. If the Bible is true and these men knew that, what would be the point of steering you the opposite direction? That doesn't seem to make sense. So people knew the Bible was true and that God's real and that you're going to go to hell or heaven, and they chose to go against it. Doesn't even make sense. Why would they do that? Until you start to get to the bottom of it, that these men wrote it. These are the groups that are behind it. And so what they know is that the more people who believe in that book, the easier it is to run the world the way that they want. Because it teaches you to just do as you're told. And how can we know that? What's the best evidence? That churches aren't taxed. You're taxed no matter what you do. But if you're a church, no, we're not going to tax you. Why? Because the church creates the people the government wants. That simple. And how do we know that? Pay to Caesar what Caesar's due. Pay taxes to whose taxes is due. The government's placed there by God. To go against the government is to go against God. And you have people who have channels on YouTube that feel like telling you that that book is true. That the book is word for word true. You're like, it says all government is placed there by God. You said don't take a vaccine. So which one do you mean? Well, you see, it's talking about an old times. Why is it in the fucking scripture? Did God not know I would read it? Did God not know we would be around today when government is clearly not placed there by God? So what the fuck is he doing leaving that in the book? Why would you worship a insane person who forgets to take things out of his book if he knows the all times future? But again, it's because people are afraid. So grow some balls, even you ladies, let them drop, and stop trusting known liars. Show me somebody who hasn't lied to you constantly, that's in any position of power. And you can't find that person. Why? Because everybody at the top is liars. That's how they get to the top. It's why you should know better than to believe in Trump. Trump is not a savior. Trump's a liar. Okay? Trump lied. Have you ever seen the video of Trump telling everybody, oh, if I'm president, Hillary's going to go to jail. She'll be behind bars. She's the worst person. She's a crooked Hillary. The second he becomes president, I'd like to point out a great lady over here. Her and her husband, they're fantastic people. I've known them my whole life. Stand up. Let's give them a round of applause. Great quality individuals here who've done nothing wrong. What the fuck? And people are like, oh, Trump. We got to go. Trump is saving the world. No, he's a liar, just like everybody in those positions. He brought on the vaccine. He fast-tracked your vaccine. Oh, yeah, but he had to. He's playing 4D chess. It's the same bullshit from the same people who tell you about Christianity being true. 4D chess. Oh, it's God's master plan. You don't understand. You read out of context. You're a goofball. Whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say. I guarantee you that the world does not operate the way you think it does. And your afterlife will not be what you think. You will not go to God and he'll give you a high five for calling gays names and tell you you were correct the whole time, that all that mattered was believing in his son, even if you're a pedophile. God, isn't that guy a pedophile over there? Yeah, he is, but on his last day, he believed in my son. Oh, seems weird that he'd be here in heaven. And what about that guy down in hell? Wasn't he cool the whole time? Yeah, he was great. He helped people out. He was a nice guy, but he never believed in my son. Oh, let's worship you some more and play some more harp music. I don't want to go to that heaven. And none of you do either. All of you don't realize that you can't even be yourself in heaven. Because if I asked all the guys here, how many guys think women's asses are attractive? Many people would say me. Okay. Do you realize when you get to heaven, you can't look at somebody's ass and say it looks nice? And they'd be like, oh, but I've been purified. I wouldn't think that way. But you do now, but you're going to be, then that's not you. A pure you that doesn't think like you do? Well, then what difference does it make to you? It's not even you. I don't want to go to heaven in a robotic form that's not me, that doesn't have my beliefs and things like that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Neither does heaven at all. Heaven doesn't make sense, but I do think that we are, and again, words of men. What I'm saying now is my belief that we will be judged for your actions here. I believe that you can do so bad that you're erased from history. Not erased from history, erased from existence. So somebody who kills people, rapes people, gone. When they're dead, they're just gone. Somebody who does really good things, but they're just confused and lost and fell down the traps of religion and Christianity and Catholicism, those people will probably come back. You'll get another chance. But if you've noticed, you have been here before, and it's getting harder as time goes on. That's why I want this to be my last time. It gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder because there's more and more and more lies. We're in a very difficult time now, but it was easier before to find the lies. Now it's getting, kind of easy now in the fact that everything's a lie. but you still can be picked out. I still believe that there's another plane of existence, and I believe that you will even possibly have remembrances of your previous lives in those other existences. But again, the idea of heaven, but not being me, right? What if, so like my mom died November of 2019, right? And she was a good person her whole life. So I certainly think if I were to believe in Christianity, she'd be in heaven. Okay. Now imagine that I die and I get to heaven and she's not there. God, what happened? Oh, your mom, she actually killed somebody when she was 15 and didn't tell you about it, and she's in hell. So that can no longer be heaven for me. So now I have to spend all existence forever without my mom, knowing that God burned her in a lake of fire. That's not heaven. So then I tell that to people and they're like, oh, well, you don't have family in heaven. Oh, really? We get there and we don't remember we lived on earth and had a family? What are you talking about? I don't want that either. Oh, well, it's just that there'll be like a mock mom up there. So then my fake mom is in heaven and the real mom's burning in hell. And the fake mom's going to convince me that she's my real mom. And that's not weird to you? No matter what story, this is why the Bible doesn't tell you about heaven, because it doesn't work. Do you understand? If God or Jesus are going to promise you something, they have to promise you something that works. But they couldn't come up with anything, so they just said, just say there'll be mansions there. People like mansions. Say that the cities will be done in gold, as it were transparent glass. Same thing, solid gold. Tell people that, people will be excited about heaven then. I mean, you're smarter than that, I would hope. But I doubt that, actually. I do doubt that. So buy a hat for me, would you? From me, would you? Go to shop.jeranism.com and get your very cool NASA going effing nowhere hat, or a USB drive full of some ebooks, or a Fake X beanie, or the library access for the Telegram, 2,500 books plus, updated every day. What book did I put up today? I don't know what book I did today. Let's go look. What book did we put today? In the Jeranism library. Jeranism library. Let's see what we put today. Today we put in, good timing. We have a couple books, but today we put in Tantra Illuminated, The Philosophy, History, and Practice of a Timeless Tradition by Christopher D. Wallace. For that, we did 1,000 Years of Tartars by E.H. Parker, first edition, 1885. For that, we had the one, How an Ancient Idea Holds the Future of Physics by Heinrich Pass. For that, we had the biography of Aleister Crowley. Before that, Afterlife, Is There Consciousness After Death? Before that, The Technology of Belief by James True. Before that, Spare by Prince Harry. So it's a new ebook uploaded every day. And before that, and then there's a whole section for Hermetic Sciences, Christianity, different religions, occult, Freemason, 2,500 plus books. The Real Dr. Fauci is here. What Doctors Don't Tell You, The Truth About the Dangers of Modern Medicine by Lynn McTaggart, second edition. The Federal Reserve, A New History by Robert L. Hetzel, 2023. The World Order, Our Secret Rulers by Eustace Mullins, 1992. So all these books are available. You could go look up that one book, Spare by Prince, whatever his name is, and it's $25 on Amazon, or $22. So one purchase for the library, you get that book plus 2,500 more. You will never need to look for another book in your entire life. This is the ebooks one here. You can combine them and get both for a cheaper price. This is all free shipping in the United States. And that's about it. All right. I am heading out. I do think that the name of the show will be, starting next Saturday, The Word of Man. I like that. What is the initials for that? TWOM. Twom? Word of Man. WOM. I don't like either of those. Could add a B and make it womb. Kind of a big fan of the womb. We'll think about it. All right. If you don't know my schedule, tomorrow we have Globebusters, 12 noon Pacific. After that, we go 3 p.m. on Monday, 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Off Wednesday, 3 p.m. Thursday, 3 p.m. Friday, 3 p.m. Saturday. So if you like the additional shows, please try and support the show. Otherwise, I'm not going to be doing it for very long. Cash App, $Jeranism. We do have some stuff on the horizon, Austin and I, and we are thinking we have good plans for 2023, big plans, and that'll be announced very soon. We are just getting everything squared up and ready to go, and we'll be bringing that. And if that goes well, could mean good things all around. So thank you guys for being in chat. Let me check something real quick. I want to go here and do this and make sure there's anybody who left any kind of tip. Oh yeah, we got some super chats here. Wait, I think where's January? What does it say? 21st? Yeah. All right, super chats. A couple of them. We got $5 from Nuba, who didn't say anything, and we got 50. Woo! From Charlie. It says Shabbat Shalom, good gig, and great show. Lots commentaries. Thank you very much. And I know a lot of people have said things to me, either way to go or what were you doing? Last night I was a moderator for a debate between Fight the Fat Shirt and Brother Sanchez, and I've always known or thought that I would be a great moderator of a debate, and I do think I am. But the problem with it was I was miserable because I wanted to speak up so much, and I wanted to call things out, and I want to call out fallacies, and I want to do it. And then people are like, "Oh, that's true. Then just debate." I'm like, "No, I hate debating." So I hate debating, become a moderator, and hate moderating because I'm not debating. So I'm not sure I could do that again. It's very difficult to hear people present bad arguments or lies, and you're just like, it feels weird to sit there and just listen to it all. And then I heard some people tell me I did a great job staying out of it, and I had other people say, like, "Why didn't you speak up when this was said? Why didn't you tell?" It's like, because that's not your job as a moderator. But we'll see. I do think that we're going to be doing some debate stuff soon, Austin and I have to decide whether I can sit through that and do that without people, or at least with people recognizing that I can't speak up in those positions. It's just not right. It's not what a moderator's job is. So I get it. People see me, they hear somebody telling a lie about space, they want to hear me jump in there. But when I'm a moderator, I can't. So, and let's go to Rokfin, check the tips there. Awesome. Thank you very much. Very kind. We got $76. Let's go to the tips. We've got Jason. I lied. We've got Nuba on time. This was the 9th show in a row. I'll have you know, 9 in a row. Basically just like, I don't know, walking all over 2023 like it's nothing. We've got Andrew B. Cheers for keeping up on your commitment to being on time. I'll try to call in later. I have an interesting story about a church experience and why I'm not religious. Andrew, I missed you. I don't know if you tried calling in. I will put more money on the account next time. Cheers from 5 times 1000 JR. What's up? Thank you very much. $20. Awesome. Ashley, thank you very much. Tip $10. Support it if you can. Tip Train. Ashley's trying to get some more support. I love it. Freight Train right after that. Keep up the tip train rolling. Support what you love. Love the shows, Jaron. Thank you very much. We've got Thank you very much for the $5. No comment. Jason Bowles, thank you very much. $20. No comment. Nuba again. Tip Train second round. $2. Thank you very much. Nuba added to his own tip train. $2. Thank you very much, Nuba. You guys are awesome. Appreciate that. It helps me get the show keep going. And I like that because if that's, I can easily put $40 on the phone lines again and be able to at least get through a show next time. So thank you guys very much. I will see you tomorrow. If we don't have Glowbusters on Glowbusters channel, I will do something on my channel same time. So 12 noon tomorrow, either Glowbusters or my channel if Bob can't run the show. We'll see you then one way or the other. If you want to find out when I'm going to be having those shows, t.me/Jeranism show is my notification channel on Telegram. I post updates and where, what time the show is going to start. Although just get used to 3 p.m. Pacific every day, but Wednesday and Sunday. I guess Sunday's Glowbusters at noon. I might try and move that, but I don't want to say that out loud. But it'd be really great if it was 3 p.m. every day. I could just do that. I would be happy. All right, guys. Much love. Love you guys a ton. Thank you for being a good support. And if you're a Christian, don't hate me. Okay? Don't hate me. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to get you to at least think about what you're doing. And if you feel that it's correct, then by all means, keep going where you're going. Keep doing what you're doing. I would hope if I was doing something that people had pretty good evidence for was definitely heading in the wrong direction, that they would tell me, or at least say, Jaron, listen to this, and then give me a chance to listen. And if I don't agree, then I don't watch anymore. That's it. There's people doing channels on tons of subjects. If I go watch, listen, and go, it's just not for me. It's not for me. That's it. So this show doesn't have to be for you. There are a group of people. It's a very difficult position to be in that don't like the religious side and don't like the science side. And there's nobody with open doors in the middle saying, hey, we can look at each thing and decide for ourselves. We don't need to be beholden to a belief system. The people in a religious belief system are beholden to that belief system. They have to say things like, oh no, God is good. Oh, we have to do what God said. They have to. So it's just like the people on the other side in science that say, oh no, physics was right and Isaac Newton is the hero. They have to say that. But we as human beings should be able to stand up for ourselves and say, I don't have to say shit. I don't have to give tribute to who tributes due or give taxes to who taxes are due. I don't have to do that shit just because a book tells me. Okay? Just like I know I can't take somebody else's freedoms away. I cannot go demand money from somebody else. The same is true of me. We've just allowed them to step into those roles and be like, we can to take money from you. We can tell you to go to jail. We can't. Like, what? Why? I'm not doing anything wrong. So the belief in this hierarchy of the Bible and all these guys and the church fathers and is just a precursor or a predictive programming, if you will, of the world that they want. We are now living in the world that they wanted the whole time. And it's become that way. If the Bible was good, if it was the good fruit, then we would be seeing signs of the belief in the Bible is what's healing the world, is what's fixing it. But we don't see that. The world is crumbling. And the Bible is not helping anything. Nothing at all. Therefore, we should know that it's not good. Look at the fruit it's bearing. Look what it's doing. Go find these preachers that get caught stealing money and lying to their parishioners. I mean, it's just everywhere. And I get it. It's hard to say that because you're like, well, Jaron, isn't everything corrupted then? Yes, it is. So we don't need to pick the one corrupt thing that we want to believe in. I would rather come to my own conclusions, reach my own beliefs. Love you guys a lot. Thank you for being here. Again, Christians, don't be mad at me. Just don't watch the show anymore. It's easy. Saturdays at 3 p.m., do something else. Go look for a man walking on water. Prove that. Prove all things. The final word for this will be the age-old fact. You know it. You just don't let it rise to the surface. Guys, gods don't write books. Men write books. Till next time, this has been Jeranism. Peace.
I know this dude named Jaren and he's looking real fine. And no, I'm not a homo, but I gotta try to make him mine. Cause he holds all of the secrets that the ancients once kept. But the way to Jaren's heart is proving you have once leapt from a volcano or a cliff or an airplane into danger without fear, crying, screaming, waking babies in their mangers. He can smell your fear from 1,000 miles away. And if you try to deceive him, well, today's your last day. You can bet he doesn't want a coward or a liar coming up to him saying, can you be my friend? Maybe you can man it up and lay it down in front of him, show him you're strong enough to go out on a limb. He's got enough ladies lining up around the block to fill 747's loading number on the clock. A lot of men are crying every single day, praying for a Jaren day, but they can't afford the price to pay. All the women want him and all dudes want to be Jaren, but the fact of the matter is, there's only one Jaren. He's got an internet following that forms a giant group. He can translate ancient tablets using alphabet soup, which he rarely even does, though it fetches big money. He doesn't even need it cause he sweats pure honey. His fans send him gifts, make him gifs, jump off cliffs, just for the once in a lifetime honor of seeing Jaron take a sip of his famous oat stew. That's right, he's a stew chef. You may say, what's a stew chef? Well, you've probably never seen a stew chef, cause there's only one stew chef, and it's Jaron cooking it up. He's known for only filling friends and family's cups with his decadent sludge that he boils all night, every night, all night, every night. It's out of sight. He can do a dance that makes everybody pee their pants and make a mess and cause stress. He's on a mission with the Jerry Berry Blitz and the Jerry Berry Twist. He's riling up the world. You can do the Jerry Berry Blitz and the Jerry Berry Twist. You can imitate the best just like the rest. Come on, Jaron, show the world what you got now. He's gonna show you his dance. He's gonna show you his skills, his dancing skills. Check him out, y'all. Jaron's powers grow with every fight, and every fight that he fights, he destroys his opponent and leaves a sticky mess on the ground. He wages war when provoked, and when provoked, he starts to smoke out of his butthole, and that's when you run away or die. Cities topple, buildings fall, mountains melt, and rivers stall when Jaron says so, cause he does what he wants when he wants. Sovereign nations all bow down when Jaron comes around. They know they can't match his skills. Yeah, they've all heard this song. He's lived for thousands of years and caused innumerable tears and broken so many hearts, I just don't know where to start. His flow's unbreakable, swagger unshakable, his style's impeccable, and you can't do anything when he competes at Pizza Prize Bowl. Girls want to marry him, but a mate would only slow him down, and besides, you know that he would never ever share his crown. He's left everyone he's met depressed, torn up, and so forlorn. What's scary is you haven't even seen his final form.